Public comment, non-agenda items. Anyone up above? Funny, I ran into someone from Firelight. They said they were going to be here, but that's okay. All right, no one here, no one there. We'll call the regular meeting to order. Conflict of interest, starting with Peter, please.
None.
None. Okay.
Nope.
None. Great. None here. So we'll get right into the consent agenda. I always start with you, Clark, even though the agenda has a little different. Let's look at district operating report.
Got it. No. Okay, March 2026, not a lot changed for our key administrative highlights. These projects are all still under development, underway. Things are moving good. Some of the big ones still on the list that we'll be talking more about is we have some significant maintenance for the MVR plan this summer. That's going to be rack inspection, cleaning, tube tie off. So big project. Jump right down into our most important numbers, which are our treatment process for the month. So we treated 21.9 million gallons, 99.2% removal of BOD, 99.7% removal of TSS, and an average effluent of 2.65 for total nitrogen. So fantastic month. We removed a significant amount of all at least two of our monitored pollutants in our water. So fantastic month of treatment at the WRF. Water quality is excellent. Compliance testing on water and wastewater side is being done. Everything is within our regulatory limits. No hits, no problems. Smooth operation of business.
What's the next level of quality on the nitrogen below the 5?
What do you mean the next quality?
Higher level.
What's the next level?
Yeah.
We would have to add additional nitrogen treatment of some sort to get.
We'd have to get to below what?
To get that to non-detect. You're already below 5.
Yeah.
Drinking water standards is 10. So you're well below drinking water.
That's what I was getting at.
A1 is 5.
A1 is 5.
Yep.
So 2.65 is as low as anybody in the country.
That's what we wanted to hear right there.
Like two of that is we call it recalcitrant. Like you can't get it without our it's weird organics and I can't say enough how good 2.65 is. Like it's amazing. And
It's like a few years ago, might have been 10 times that in the same meeting if we ended up coming up.
You couple that with our phosphorus and our numbers are really exceptional. We're making fantastic water. And that's represented in all of our compliance testing all the way up at YC2. So really happy with that.
So any other nitrogen's 1? What's the other? We'd have to meet what standard for drinking?
So our effluent discharge is 10, 10, and 5. So 10 for BOD and TSS, 10 milligrams per liter, and 5 for total nitrogen. We met both of these. So if you would like to see BOD, the average and stuff like that, you guys let me know and I can put that on this slide. If you want to see what our monthly average for BOD and TSS is, that's easy for me to add it. And then you can see all of our permit requirements.
What I'm getting at, if we were to need water, what level would we have to get to recycle for drinking water?
Your next step would be RO.
It'd be a 5th stage of treatment. Right now you're treating to the highest standards, but to take this from reuse water and put it in the groundwater, we're pretty close, but there would be another standard of treatment that we would need. But to take this right to put it into the drinking water system, we'd have to do reverse osmosis.
that would really be about pharmaceuticals and PFAS and really exotic.
Okay.
There you can drink this water. You're not gonna see a drastic improvement in the quality, even though you'd have to do called multi-barrier treatment. In order to drink it, all you would be doing is adding redundancy to guarantee that nobody gets sick.
It's pretty good. Good.
And that's our phase 2 or phase 3 now we're calling it, potentially.
I shied away from phase at all.
Right. It was phase 2.
Supplemental water source.
So bringing back an old graph here, betting some data, but here what you guys will see is our pond storage. So as you guys can take a look, you can see our days pumped to the YC. We have currently moved approximately 22 million gallons since starting that up this year. All of that has gone off without a hiccup. It is all being sent to YC. That process is continuing for now. Anticipate, unless Lone Mountain asks us to stop, at least another 30 million gallons will go up the hill. And then we'll drop over to Spanish Peaks and hopefully irrigation will be started here in the next 60 days.
And currently in the filter building, we're revamping pumps and replacing a pump to get ready for irrigation.
Pond storage depth hasn't changed a lot. We're still pretty full. As flows come down, we should start gaining, but we've been maintaining. So as you guys see, you can see your pond ID 1 and 3 over here. Current depth in pond 1 is around 16 feet. Pond 3 is holding at full, which is 18. And right now we're recirculating 3 up to 1 just to help keep the ponds fresh, because as the weather changes, we will get turnover in those ponds. So it's just like a seasonal bacterial change that happens in them. So that helps keep that pond fresh. So the irrigation pond is full and the large pond for YC is right around 16, 17 feet. Biosolids for the month was another solid month. We produced 84.66 tons and we hauled all of those away. Average total solids for cake is 11.9%. And we're working on that right now, trying to improve that. Obviously, like we've discussed, drier cake saves us money and we're hauling less water down the canyon. Jump right into water unless anybody has questions. Water production in the first quarter was up. Typical demand in the mountain. Total system production was up 18.4% compared to the same period in 2025. We've got a couple graphs here that you guys can see that demonstrate the Meadow Village, Mountain Village, Yellowstone Club, and Meadow Mountain total production.
It's the Meadow Village. I wouldn't call it a spike, but it's considerably more. What do we think that is?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have a good answer.
My numbers.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
Quite a bit.
It jumped.
People already irrigating.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I saw the first irrigation system on a little coyote today. So when was this through, by the way? Just
It's March.
It's through March,
this is just through March.
Yeah.
Got it.
January through March.
Meadow, you're right. That's a big one.
So there could be a lot of things affecting that we can dive into. We've got a lot of meter replacements going on. I mean, we've been doing a good job trying to replace old meters that aren't reading, getting new ones in. So there could be quite a few factors playing into this.
So
Almost
the
50%.
last 10 years, the meters haven't been reading. So that's your excuse right there.
Yeah.
It's potentially one part of it.
Potentially.
Would be good to figure it out. So man, we think about water a lot, and we all do, and it just sits a giant number if that trend continues.
I was just going to say, if that continues into April, especially with shutting the resort down weekdays in April, that's going to be a good feeling.
Okay. Water system did fantastic. Like I said, all regulatory samples are taken. Everything is well within limits, which means non-detect, because most of our water samples are back to E. coli total coiform tests, no hits. Everything's non-detect. We are starting up our ISO fire hydrant testing, so you will see a lot more of our staff out in the field with new equipment doing the ISO testing for our hydrants, which is static residual flow through and pitot pressure on that system. So we'll be taking a look at that. Most of the field operations and maintenance is standard practice. We did have some water-centric locates, pretty standard numbers. We're not seeing an abundance of locates. I anticipate those might go up a little bit. Construction season's upon us. New permits are starting to trickle in, construction's starting to take off. And I would say probably our biggest thing that we're doing water side is working with Atlanteum, and we're getting the UV system ready for its operation here later this year. Questions, comments for me? Okay.
Mark, I do have one question. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were at the end of your presentation or just that category. When we talk about treating to the A1 standard, anyone, and is this a correct statement, anyone who's treating to the A1 standard is going to produce a sizable amount of biosolids that they're gonna have to get rid of, correct?
I would say it's more depends on your treatment process, but you are going to have to refine your water to a very high standard, which means you're going to capture all those solids in your system, 90% or better. So with an NBR meeting A1 standards, treating that ammonia to such a high level, we have to hold more pounds in the system to have bacterial mass to do that. Then you have to process them out. But your NBR catches between 90 and 99% of those solids. Solids passing through would push us out of compliance. So based on our style of treatment, you're going to produce a lot more solids because you're capturing everything in it versus a conventional activated sludge plant, which we're allowed to do if we have discharge permit hundreds of pounds, whereas conventional activated sludge might allow you based on your water body 5,000 to 12,000 pounds of BOD or TSS a day, and we are far from that.
Okay, but could you allow that to flow through the system and still meet an A1 standard?
It would be extremely difficult.
Okay.
That's a great.
That's where my head was going is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
think I know where your head's going at. Well, you just opened the door for me, but finish yours.
It's if you're asking if we can like tune it to still meet A1, but reduce that standard, maybe a point or two, it's very difficult to do. It's usually best to stay safe and just meet that mark.
Yeah.
But we're going to still produce the same amount of solids.
Tell you from experience, I had a couple BNR facilities, you have a higher chance of exceeding those limits outside of an NBR facility. So I had clarifiers and stuff, I could still meet those, but if I had a high rate of it or whatever, I have a higher chance of washing out solids, which could.
then you stay under,
Yeah.
you stay under, right?
Yeah, push into more compliance.
Or if I had a process upset and clarifiers weren't settling, or whatever, I have a higher chance of solids going out versus an NBR. So
Yes, so you're gonna,
he has a better chance of retaining them versus
Right.
another facility that is conventional.
but I think that's what we want to accomplish, right? We want to trap those and not.
Right.
Have it go into our environment and wherever else it goes, but I just wanted to clarify that there wasn't some other mechanism where you wouldn't have that much, I'll call it waste, right? But then you're left having your deal with it somewhere else. And part of the reason we have so much is because the treatment we're doing is so successful.
Correct.
Thank you.
Or should be filling the ponds up too by letting it pass through? Would you have to clean the ponds out more frequently if you let the solids?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're kind of back.
Gotta go
back
somewhere.
conundrum,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
The settle amount of ponds, yeah,
clean them out.
absolutely.
I think what you triggered with me is, we've heard proposals of the package plants that can treat to the A1. And you don't hear about the O&M that goes with that down the line. And what you were asking really triggered that idea that is there a way to avoid that O&M or that expense directly or indirectly when someone says, hey, we can do a package plan for $10 million and we can achieve everything you're doing. And then you kind of scratch your head and say, how are they doing 10 million? And are they factoring in the O&M that goes with this standard of A1? Or are they is there some way to circumvent it or avoid it? That's what I think you and I were thinking on the same lines of.
Yeah, I was just dangling it out there. You finished the sentence.
You lit the fuse.
So point, yes, if that was to happen, you still have to deal with solids from another place.
Yeah. One way or another. There's no avoiding it with the A1.
No.
Especially if you're not going to do a discharge, right?
Right.
Got it. Yeah, it's good to know. Great information. Any other questions, Clark? All right,
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with financials.
you bet.
All right. Year to date, our total operating revenue is up 3%, 2.95%, 4.3. Our operating expenses are up more than that 123% of what we budgeted. at 7 million, due to that pond cleanout that we didn't have in our budget, and then also the legal fees. We also have had an increase a little bit in just some costs with the work that were not expected, but we're working through all of our processes down there. So that should, well, that's gonna go up a little bit here, and then you'll see that in my budget later too, but. I also added in to the financials just for our information, because Mike asked how we're gonna pay for the biosolids project. Cash on hand, we have 1.7 million. Our asset replacement and restricted operating reserves are at 7.4 million, and our plant investment funds are at 7.1 million. 2 million of that is reserved for water, the rest is for sewer. So just so you guys have an idea. I think I also added in, let me just say one more point about the water production, because that number I pulled from the guys, and we need to really take a look at that number, because our billing numbers were up just marginally. We just billed in March, and they were up marginally, so we need to actually take a look at and make sure that number.
Water sold versus water.
But yeah, we'll sort of back with that next time, or actually maybe before that. The other project that Lindsay and I were working on was just going through the Spanish Peaks permits and like looking at billing there and water usage. So there's a good chart in there. I think Brian asked me, he kind of tasked me with that. We permitted 1,092 SFEs in Spanish Peaks. They actually still have 88 of those are under construction. And so I averaged out the Montage and the Inn just to kind of separate those two. And they're running, this is just billable. It's not what we're taking in, just working on our food maintenance. They're averaging 92.5 gallons per SFE per day at the Montage, 69 gallons per SFE per day at the Inn. And then the homes, if you separate all the residences out, they're at about 54.8. So he wanted me to kind of take a look at that. So you guys, we have a flow-based agreement there. As we work on those flumes to just kind of be our checks and balance, we really took a solid look at this. It was good. It was a good audit. Lindsay and I are going to keep going through and do each subdivision just so that we can have the numbers pre-prepared.
Just to clarify, the reason I asked for that is, so Spanish Peaks was our baseline for doing a flow-based agreement. We're learning from it. It's about what I expected. And the reason I expected that is because when we looked at the highest use for gallons per day per SFE, the Wilson was the highest at one point. I'm sorry, the brewery was.
Yeah.
The brewery was like 140 gallons per day, and then Wilson was behind it. And it wasn't so much just for curiosity, it was to say, okay, how attainable or how achievable are these thresholds that we're putting into our two agreements? And we're going to have another one coming right behind it. The biggest challenge with the Flatiron agreement is that we didn't have the database of 1,000 SFEs. So in other words, we're starting from scratch, and we just don't want to get over our skis out there and say, yeah, you're going to be able to achieve this. The fact of the matter is, I think that what you just said is pretty much what Spanish Peaks represented.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a weighted average, because the homes at 54, great, we got a little bit of pad, but you've got to look at those lodging properties.
This is a good quarter to look at this. This is
Yeah.
peak season for winter, so it's like this is an actual. These numbers are really, it's kind of timely, I guess.
I think the next step is this, to say, and the good news for the Spanish Peaks agreement and the Flatiron agreement is this: that's a quarter.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to do a trailing 12.
Sure.
So that we capture the shoulder seasons. And we can start saying, okay, that peaked at, I'm actually surprised how low something like Montage was in a peak quarter like this. So I think that the good news is we have a cushion for the Flatiron guys sitting here. It's yours to win or lose. You just keep those flows in line, tracking all the things that you had to do. But this is fantastic data for us to be tracking. I think the trailing 12 would be critical.
And also getting the flumes online and just checking for I&I and.
Well, and you had a good learning experience, I think, when you had that spike. You showed it last month, and you found the cause and solution on that, right?
Right, we're working through it.
Yeah, but I mean, pretty much, we knew that would be out there. That if you had a grease build up, that it would reflect a higher than accurate flow. So this isn't just about, hey, it's interesting to look at. This will be the template for the future. And it confirms, I think, the negotiations that we just finished as a subcommittee, that these are these are reasonable, attainable goals. So,
Yeah, and I could have been higher too. The January we had or the July we had in January, February, and
Yeah,
March, you know,
so-
like everything's.
you 100% had high, so we had exceeded.
The other one I question I had is on the, looks like power continues to be like from an operating cost perspective at the plant. I mean, is that something that's stabilized now with the operations, or I mean, that's a.
You think you're gonna see more truer cost, seasonally, I think you're still gonna see ups and downs, just because of the flow and shoulder, so when coming out of the season, that's probably gonna be your peak factors, and then shoulder season, you'll see it come down a little bit, because we're not running as much blower operation and mixer operation and stuff, so you know, when you're pushing full capacity of the plant versus going back down to 50%.
We definitely are keeping our eyes on it, and we're talking about it, like it's a thought that we're having all the time. We want to try and figure out how we can actually reduce that cost, so.
Part of it is what it is, but I'm just thinking more of the beginning the next budget cycle here, what, maybe
Yeah.
now, maybe. You know,
Yeah, it is.
just like what is the cost?
Yeah,
It's like we should be able.
Yeah, I think this is the first whole year going into year two, we're starting to see the full cost, so we should be able to say, we should be running it.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Mike, because that came up in our last CIP meeting, we were looking at the budget. And the way Amy's presenting the budget now, it jumps up even more. In that, you know, for an organization, we're spending over $500,000 a year on Northwestern Energy.
Big number.
Yeah.
it is.
We could show you where you are in relation to other NBR plants. NBRs are somewhat notorious for being the highest energy demand of treatment technologies, but we just check it to make sure it's within the band of NBR plants.
Good.
Yeah, and there's the last piece that was also interesting that Amy not only took the total number, but broke it down by category, sewer, water, reuse. The question that Brian has asked a lot of is, what does it cost to pump water uphill?
Yeah.
You know, and I think what do we have estimating about 100,000
Yeah.
of that half
For
million.
water
is going
and
towards
for
reuse.
reuse, yeah. So I will also just say that I just audited throughout the years to make sure that my numbers were good, and it's been a steady increase, but it's not, it didn't jump up that much from last year to this year, so we are leveling out. It's just what can we do when we do the audit on that? So it was a contribution.
Sure.
Yeah.
Could we go back to the Spanish Peaks?
Yeah.
What's the overall number
You remember.
of gallons per SFE?
And then, for houses, it's 54.8.
And houses and the hotel.
I didn't.
It's 54.
Yeah, I did not average all of them out, honestly. I combined the two hotels. I'll get you that.
Well, what I'm interested in, what does that do to what we are using for the, how many 100,000?
They're right on par.
They're gonna be mirrored.
They're gonna be married. So what this is, no, hold on. What this is seeing, I mean, they're up a little bit. I don't have last year's number off the top of my head. But now they're coming out of the season, shoulder season, it's gonna be way, way down. So their average will be right around right here. So they're
What
right
number
on.
we're using
Say good,
to give them SFEs?
56.
54.
Yeah.
56.
Okay.
Well, are we, you asked about the total flow, but with that total agreement. Too.
Oh, that's the 50, 30.
I thought we were at 66 for,
56.
so we had a pad in between what you're talking about. We're saying the same thing, somewhere in that 66 range. And we do that
Gallons per SFE per day.
per day.
Yeah.
And the reason, Dick, I keep getting back to it is we were talking in our subcommittees and so on is that's why it's so important to do a trailing 12. Because that shows us now it's gonna go down to all those are gonna be cut in half probably. And then it helps the Flatiron guys because they don't have a baseline of 1,000 SFEs to work from. So when they look at their financial model based on gallons in units, you can now see that if you build a brewery down there, you guys are gonna know that you're gonna be in that 140 gallons per day per SFE. Or hotel may be, well, the Wilson's more of a year-round property, but it helps us keep the guardrails on our agreements. That's why it's so important.
I just want to make sure that they are within the standard there for the 191, or what, 1,091 SFEs.
Yeah, they're still good.
Yes, Scott.
Was this basically full occupancy? Do we know, right?
Yeah, they were
80%.
Yeah, I really don't know. I didn't talk to John and ask him if they were at full occupancy, but I can tell you, I don't think the inn was at full occupancy. That's a newer property. So when I looked at the numbers, I was like, that one seems like it's not, but I can follow up with it and ask.
It's an 88%.
Is he in
But they were
the condo?
blended to the.
It's condos and it's kind of a hotel right across from the montage.
Yeah, It's condos.
It is like I think-
Fractional
Yes, that's what
or
that's-
shares, so
Okay.
they're selling shares, it's not totally sold out yet.
Yeah,
So that probably would be reflected in the numbers that were slightly different.
that's what I thought when I saw him, but I guess I should follow up with John and just ask him what his numbers were.
The reason I'm so confident on the montage dropping like a rock is it's deceiving when you say the montage. You say, well, we have a hotel here. No, that's basically their mountain services and operations facility. So when you close the mountain down, it's not just about the lodging. Those are the bathrooms, the restaurants, everything that's going along with operating basically a satellite ski area.
Mm.
So once you shut the mountain down, it's just pillows. So it's gonna be a great exercise. And I think the timing's solid there for all of us. I feel like we're proactive with it, not reactive. That's the good news.
That's also one of the reasons our system has to be so big, is to meet the high demand period.
You gotta build a church for Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
You do. And that's good to know. You're tracking an 88% occupancy, you know. I can tell you this, the resort hotels, back when I was up there, they were only running, yearly in the 40s. So when you get in that 40s range, that's a completely different animal than say in the first quarter at 88, which I believe it's running at 88. And I believe the resort was running at 88 to 90 for the first quarter. But then you factor in the shoulders in the summer.
Blended, it gets you 40, 50, might get to 60, maybe. Get to 60, congratulations.
I'll throw a 20 on the table on the 60 year round. It's just so hard because you're gonna have shoulder seasons.
You'll see that creep up as the shoulder season gets shorter and shorter every year.
Do you know what though, Dick? It was really interesting this year to see, the resort shutting down remember this year's structure is a little different. It's called, quote, the bonus weekends. And next year is gonna be the real test because you have Easter in March. It's gonna be an early Easter, and Easter is a trigger for skier visits for guests, not local skier visits. So all those things, it's great because of all the work you're doing, we can start dovetailing that with some of these other features like an occupancy rate and how it works at different times. But to have the resort closed this week and last week, that's interesting. That's extending. And I think it's the 12th somewhere in there for opening. That's a long off season if you go from mid-April to be closing your facilities. So anyway, it's the exciting part of the board now. It's the strategic planning with the data. So, all right. Sorry.
Do you guys want to go straight into the budget?
No, they gotta
Okay.
approve the consent agenda.
Oh, gotcha. All right. We're already halfway there, Johnny. Thought we'd just keep going.
I know.
When you're on the roll.
I always give Clark the headline to do it first. That's why. And do we need to do the consent agenda first every time? Just a thought. Always good to jump right in with you, go to you, and then if we had a long consent agenda discussion.
You don't need to do it first. You can go whenever you want.
Just a thought. But we'll do the consent agenda. How about everybody else? Did they get a chance to review the consent agenda?
You're just saying you may be changing the order
Order.
of the items in the consent agenda. Do the
Yeah.
district operating report first, even though we all know financial is most important, that's it.
I'm thinking Clark, you guys want to flip?
You wanna do the financial
This is
first,
my-
then operating?
Emotional.
Yeah. This is data. All right. Let's not overthink this. Let's just. Why don't we stay on track with the budget since we're in numbers line right now? We don't have.
You wanna approve the consent agenda?
You gotta approve the consent agenda.
You do have to, I do. I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
I'll second.
I'm missing out.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
So
I
you
think
want
we
to
got it.
jump into new business.
Well. Okay, I didn't know if you had.
Well, we kind of have budget and CIP in our
Yeah.
committee report.
Got it. I thought I was gonna go under finance. That's why I said finance report, then we'll go back to it. But you're gonna have that as an action item. Got it.
Well,
So
not
and that's on a
actually.
committee report, but not a,
Yeah, I'm just gonna present the draft budget.
got it.
In the committee.
That's right.
I like. Two birds, one stone.
Budget and CIP, I don't think so. I think you guys all saw in the board packet, well, actually, maybe we should pull up the new chart of accounts there. So in order to make sure that the picture is clear, we've worked really hard to simplify the chart of accounts. And so it's been kind of a tough transition, pulling the old chart into the new. But I think it's gonna be better. I think it's gonna be a better example for you guys. You'll be able to examine these numbers more clearly. But overall, the budget, you can see the income numbers. We're estimating are gonna be at just over 6 million. And that includes the 5% water increase and the 7% sewer increase that we have baked into our rates from our rate study previously. It was a softer approach, but we've stuck with that. So you can see that's just a small increase. Our numbers, again, like I said, we just ran first quarter. Volume wise, our actual water usage is pretty steady. Nothing's really changed too significantly there. So it didn't increase the numbers because of any additional usage. Well, Al actually asked me to run the numbers for, like let's say we take Firelight on and what those numbers would act, how that would affect our budget, because that's part of the decision too for you guys. So I'll have that here shortly. I'll just run those numbers just so that we can add that to the income as well. Expenses, we are working really hard to try and control our expenses. Here in the office and throughout the system. This past year, we implemented a ton of software improvement upgrades that were very costly. So all of the initial cost for that is out, so we're just at maintenance. So those numbers are down significantly. With the restructure of our staff, salaries are down marginally. And then our fleet costs should reduce significantly. We're intending to sell 5 trucks this year. So that's going to reduce insurance costs. Fuel costs have gone down too with our restructuring. So some of these numbers, we're really trying to control all the numbers. Let's see, so I left legal fees at the same budgeted number. And then actually you asked me to make one change. This is the draft, I'll have the final 2 here, but with regards to attorney fees, but we're gonna keep them the same. Hopefully those numbers, obviously the cost will be significantly down this year. This is how, make sure nothing else occurs there.
Is there anything left floating around out there, or we kind of?
Yeah, we still have some fees for the what do you call it? There's just a few bills coming in still from our previous litigations, so we're
No active lawsuits now.
No, we've got,
I'm glad you're still going up.
I can't remember what you call it when
The
you,
appeal.
The
That's kind of it.
yeah, they've been kind of small, thankfully.
I will say it's so frustrating to look at how we're planning and trying to get to the point where we know in what year do we take over the payments for the work? Is it 31?
Yes,
Or not 31? So
I think it's,
trying to build a budget that
23rd.
can absorb that when we reach that point. And recognizing the depreciation we have to have in every year for the last 4 years to take such a substantial hit. And recognizing what we could be doing with that money. that could be productive for the organization. So I feel like I'm a broken record because I find a way to bring it up every meeting, but I also feel like it's something we can't forget. We can't get numb to it and just say, well, unfortunately, it's a cost of trying to be a reuse organization. You have to spend $4 million defending your reuse program, which is, in my mind, what it's coming down to. So
It's a major victory in my mind if it is only 200,000 this year. Wouldn't that be, that'd be a giant relief as compared to what it's been in the past, you know, taking that 600 and putting it somewhere else is like, I get your point out. For sure.
yeah, but you're right. Every year it offsets what we're trying to be responsible because you can't predict what that cost is.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I guess I'm not gonna go through every line in this budget, but I will just say that, working with Clark, we're trying to be proactive and not reactive at work. So that those costs are up a little bit. So, but we're planning for them and those numbers are included. So we're still at a $1.8 million deficit, 1.79 something. Or
Much of that's depreciation.
2.55.
Yeah.
So,
favorite thing is always depreciation.
I hear you, but if we don't cover depreciation, then those reserves are gonna continue to go down. And then we won't be able to do a solid project in the same.
Yeah, I understand. Just about cash.
Absolutely.
More or less, I was thinking operation, so that's a good clarification. By the way, you went over some of these are just something to celebrate that you're
We're
knocking
working
out.
really hard.
No, you can see it up there. You're going so fast. I'm having a tough time. Just give yourself a little credit there on some of these reductions. They're great.
Yeah, it's good. Some things have increased, but they're actually proactive maintenance for the wharf so that we don't have large
Right.
costs coming
Right.
up. On the fly. That's really where the direction that we're trying to head. So that was really the focus in this budget. And we're gonna continue to get better at all of this, so.
I would like to see more of these and these. The only time we see these is if something is increased in the industry or it's changed our price.
Okay, so, any questions about the draft budget? Those numbers will fine tune, we'll get insurance numbers in for health insurance and for our regular insurance. And then we're gonna go through our, review process. So we'll have finer details on all the numbers, for you. And then we'll approve the budget in June. So it's,
Just to throw out the one large line item that we've got coming up is the well. Reconditioning.
yeah, so next to can I just go to CIP now? That's exactly right. So there's two large projects on the CIP. The biosolids project, which is a $4 million project. And then we're breaking up the well rehab. We need to rehab 5 wells. So we're gonna try and do 1 per year. That's our goal. And we're actually sitting down with Jim Potts and Dowell and gonna decide which one we're gonna go after. But those are the 2 large projects. 4 million for the biosolids project, which is imperative we have to do that project. We don't have a choice. And then the well rehab I have at $250,000. The other items on this list.
Part of that 4 million, just throw that out there.
Yes.
Because we got that one bond payment is coming off this year, so
That's right.
Kind of back to square. Should we just look at a creative way to, it's not gonna be on the tax roll, but just find a way to.
We are financing, we have some funds remaining in our loan, so like 1.5 million of that project will be financed. And we do have the reserves, I believe, that we could do the rest of. Water projects down the road though, yeah. Any questions about CIP? Okay, that's it.
Again, and that was under committee reports, right? So we don't need that. I thought you were bleeding right into your financial report into that. So no action on it. All right.
I am.
It's great. It's good news.
You've already done new business.
Okay. All right, Flatiron. Dick, Mike. Thoughts, guys?
Are we gonna get into the agreement or?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if anybody had anything to open up with this, Chris is here, Michael's here. Anything you had before we open up on the agreement that we've forwarded to you? No. Okay. And you have the most recent version in your packet right now, correct? From Susan.
It is not the most recent, there's one additional version that came out after.
So went out in the board packet on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, then why don't we do this? Let's put the agreement up and we'll cover those two topics because everybody, if they reviewed it, be good to identify the red line version of that. Do you have that, John?
I have what's in the packet.
Okay, I'm gonna send you then the red line. There were only 2 or 3 adjustments to it. But it'd be good just so that there's no surprises for
Send it to
anybody.
conference. Email, please.
Susan, can you hear us all right? Make sure that we have Susan online to comment here.
So.
What's the email address?
Conference at WSB 263.
We should be issuing the motion.
No.
Brian, is this an action item or is this a?
No, it's gonna be before. Well, it's gonna come up later. So we can look at it either way.
Yeah, maybe we should have that number.
There won't be a vote on it, just for clarity. Yeah. When you get it, Johnny. Okay. So you have this red line version. Mike, you have the red line version. And everyone else has the agreement without the red line. So if it's all right, we'll go through the red lines and there's a Y and so on. And got it on Friday.
Friday, that's the most recent.
I'm just double checking.
That's something you got.
Packet went out on Friday and then Susan sent this on Friday as well.
Okay, that's right.
Just gonna double check. Yeah, Friday at 2:46, just so to help you out. All right. You have us up, Johnny?
Yep. The Susan is.
And Susan can chime in if she wants, anywhere along the line. So let's start out with the black lines that you received in your board packet, and then we'll go to just the red lines that were in there. We were talking about it earlier when Spanish Peaks came up. The Spanish Peaks agreement was great for us because it saved us an enormous amount of time. And let's face it, the 2001 agreement that we all inherited had a lot of issues. Not just the flow base, but a lot of ambiguity in it. And using Spanish on the Flatiron agreement, we wanted to create boilerplate for items that were consistent between the two because they're under the same umbrella in the 2001 agreement. But we also wanted to make the adjustments for considerations that were not consistent between the two properties. First and foremost, that we spent almost all our time on was the fact that Spanish Peaks has their own water system. And we got bogged down in the water system, the wells and things like that for a lot of time. But with regards to everything else on the commitment, the flow-based formula, the 80% thresholds, gallons per day per SFE, all those items now, we try to mirror the two, indemnification, other items, exploratory wells that we used in the cold smoke. So now that these agreements are evolving to a template that we can now mirror on the next property. And that next property, let's say it's Boyne, they don't have a flow-based agreement. So that's going to be a little different, but they are coming to the table with SFPs like Coal Smoke did. So then we go into the next property. So what we're going to do is lift each one of these areas that's consistent between the agreements and the review process and for annexation, and try to make sure that we're not deviating or reinventing the wheel. So with this agreement, everything pretty much after the subcommittee reviewed it, basically felt that it was consistent with Spanish Peaks conditions moving forward, and it was controllable. The red that you'll see up there, if you scroll down, Johnny, were just clarifications. And this was unique because you had, let's see, section 28, 29, you had a situation where there's an area called the Thumb. That's at the S turn at the first Summit View access. Well, that was in the district at the time of the 2001 agreement. So that didn't need to be considered for the annexation. But the east half of 28 would need to identify different criteria along with the properties that was in the original exhibit.
East half of 21.
East half of 20. I'm gonna pull up mine.
Dick's correct.
Yeah. It's always correct, right? For the record. And basically the red lines you're seeing, east half of 29, which is where the wells are. So we wanted to confirm that, and they're right on the border, that we covered that clearly. But most importantly, it was for clarification and confirmation that the SFEs that are a part of, or the flow base that is a part of the 2001 agreement could be used in the area that was pre-existing in the district from 1973 or whatever time, 96. So it was in the district. The next one, Johnny, if you go down, was again, clarification and confirmation that the wells that the thumb of track 1 is within the district boundaries again. So it's basically clarifying that it's about the thumb, not that's in the district at this point.
What page are you on, Brian?
I'm going to tell you in a second. We're going to scroll down. They're both there. Everything in the first 5 pages that we have a red line. So on the bottom of right of the page 4 again, just for confirmation that the thumb, everything's about the thumb. Okay, now we'll go down, Johnny, to the top of page 6. Top of page 6. So top of page 6 is basically a modification that says we're not bifurcating or separating the commitments or obligations from the 01 agreement for the existing Lone Moose Meadows units. In other words, they assumed the benefits and obligations and liabilities associated with Lone Moose Meadows in a flow-based agreement. And the reason for that is if there's an issue with flows, it's a bit unusual, the fact that we permitted SFEs to a separate entity now that's a condo association, but those flows in the flow meter are the responsibility of Flatiron. If there are issues with INIs or spikes in use, we need a straight chain of responsibility, and that is the Flatiron agreement. At the same time, it's theirs to manage. If there is an issue with their flows and they track it back to that date or it's a reduction, they get the benefit. It's just both sides of it. We can't assume the responsibility, but they get the benefit in it. That's what that language is. Rather than being the 36,029,661, which would be extracting Lone Moose Meadows from it, it's the 38,300,000 consistent with the 01 agreement. So for good or bad, it's theirs to manage. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, to confirm for the 5th or 6th time, this includes the thumb. We sure didn't miss that in there. Got the thumb again down below. Again.
I couldn't find any other way to make sure we spread it all without.
That's all right. I'd rather overkill it than miss it, but I don't think we missed that thumb. So, again, identifying on page, again, there's not a lot of the red here, but on page 7, it's just identifying the legal description for the other property. Okay, under page, we get into the wells. Under page 8, we're identifying what the water will be providing. This was early on in the process of saying, do we provide water for with the SFEs? It's a flow-based agreement, this and that. Well, it turned out that this property was on the tax rolls. To be clear, the 29 property, excluding and not the district property, was not on the tax roll. So those are going to have 2 separate fee structures for the PIC 6. Is that correct, Amy?
Yes.
So we're basically identifying these areas specifically. Again, this is in the northwest quarter of 29. A lot of other things were picked up. Mike had some good points on the snowmaking, identifying that. We did clarify something yesterday that was not redlined in here, and it's going to be the mechanism for controlling water for whether it's irrigation or for other purposes. They will be on a bulk rate, which is consistent with other properties. Boyne uses a bulk rate program for irrigating ski terrain for landscaping. Same thing, it's a bulk rate. Correct me if I'm wrong, for Yellowstone Club when you get up into the Everett's andesite area. So the key for that, and it was a good point, is the irrigation. Again, it's for them to manage. The irrigation will not be going into the flow meters, obviously. So we need a mechanism to cap that so we don't get over the top of where we're committing across the board. And we should look at that in the bigger picture for maybe seasonally capping that rate depending on well performance and so on. Does that make sense, Johnny, for not just this property, but for others? Okay, under paragraph 8, and this is on page 9. There was clarification on a number of things here, and obligations, payments, grants of easements. And it was clarification and confirmation that when we talk about, quote, unfettered access and test wells, that we have to work with them in a mirror image again of the full smoke agreement, and that we just can't drop it in the middle of a hotel property that they're platted. But let's talk about why this is a win-win in this one in particular. Early on in the agreement, we just kept getting stuck in the wells. And the reason it's a win-win, and I'm glad to hear Michael for this, because I just, from the board, the committee's point of view all the way along, and I'm glad we could come to a resolution on this. The wells have been discussed. Some have said they're not really the asset that others say they are on the board. And the fact of the matter is, this in particular, with the district having the ability to go on land and explore for additional wells and source and assume these wells and the easements that go with it in the structure we've identified, is a true win-win. The district doesn't own hundreds of acres of land to go out and explore for water. This is a tremendous asset for the district. On the other side, Flatiron doesn't have the water rights. And once they annex the district, and it was something that we really had to clarify with Flatiron, is to say this: hey guys, you're annexing in, you can't drill a well once you're in the district. And therefore, what do you have? You don't have the water rights, and you don't have the ability to do it, and you're the one requesting the annex. It was a win-win. It took away the uncertainty. Early on with the board, I want to just kind of recap it. There were, again, was questions: do we have to supply water? Well, that was confirmed. We have to. But then the door was opened again with other board members researching and saying, well, do we only have to supply up to the 900 SFEs of water? Well, this resolves that issue. And again, it was a win-win. District benefits, Flatiron benefits from removing that uncertainty for other development projects. Does that kind of make sense for everybody what we're trying to achieve here? And that's pretty much everything on page 9. Hold harmless, again, I believe, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to get consistent language when these considerations are identical. And we use the hold harmless language from coal smoke. Is that correct, Susan?
That is correct, and they were right in the fact that the way it was written, we could have breached the agreement and then they couldn't have, and then they would have held us harmless from breaching the agreement. So, while our obligations are not immense in the fact that, our next step is to just annex the property and then serve it under our rules and regulations, this did need to be changed, and that was a really good edit from Flatiron.
Good. Thank you, guys. And I think it's consistent. Again, next one comes around, whether it's Boyne or for areas like hold harmless, when you get into exploration and so on, we use the same language. Same thing goes along with the flow base eventually when town center comes in based on a flow base or any other step we do. So that's pretty much it. Susan, anything else I missed? We talked over the weekend, we talked yesterday. The committee's really put a lot of time in, but I think we're gonna continue to receive the benefits from this and future agreements moving forward. We've got a couple things to iron out. Again, Chris or Michael, if you have any comments, feel free to the board.
I think we're in a great place. I appreciate it, Susan, Dick, Mike, Brian, working through this. I know it hasn't been easy. I very much appreciate the time.
Okay, thanks. How about Scott and the team? Anything we missed along the way, or any red flags come up in that, or?
No, you look more at the water side of Flatiron.
Yeah, I would think it's excited to see it come together. It was a good win-win, and so thumbs up from our perspective. I think we're excited to see how much water quality, quantity, and how does that update the overall master plan goal.
It was a roller coaster. Again, we inherited a tough agreement. That's all there. And this board inherited a tough one, and ironed it out with Spanish Peaks, ironed it out with Flatiron. Financial responsibilities that each one has its own nuance, but we got to maintain that consistency. And in some cases, it's not going to sound fair. I know there were questions about, well, you didn't do this with this person, you didn't do that with this. I will say this: if Chad's online, you're going to have the same criteria. If you want to truly extend and annex in the bowl, you're going to have to build a water tank up there, and you have to do things for it. And that's where I think it's good to clarify with coal smoke and so on, and say, hey, it's not just you. Anyone who's doing either an annexation or a development expansion outside the parameters of the existing infrastructure, you're on the hook. Good news with Flatiron, you have a tanker already, things like that. But when applicable or when available, we should adopt that same language across the board. Okay. How about questions or comments? What did I miss, Dickie?
I'm still not comfortable with that gallons per day per year. I think it's in paragraph 4.
Gallons per day per SFE?
No, gallons
Okay.
per day per year
Got it.
is a meaningless term.
Okay, Susan, this came up, I think, last week in a round of emails. Can you clarify that?
No, and if Dick has a better way to describe the volume, I'm happy to do that. I agree. It's not, he's right, except he's right in that it's never going to be the 33 million or whatever it is per day.
38.
It's 38 per year. So I don't know how the day got in there, and I don't know why the day got in there. And I can tell you math and volumes is not my deal.
Well,
So
It would just be gallons per year.
Gallons per year.
Yeah, it was 38
Yeah,
million.
the E is
When you put 38 million gallons per day per year,
that's a lot of
Yeah.
water.
38
that's-
million gallons a day.
You don't want 38 million gallons per day.
Yeah,
right, that would be a year. So look at the Middle Fork people and ask them if they're okay if we change that to 38 million gallons per year, which is the measurement,
Yes.
right?
They're good. Yeah, it's in G.
Okay, then I agree, we'll take it out.
So
That's repeated
and we need to
numerous
look at
times.
it. I see it
Oh,
in
I know,
paragraph-
I'm very aware.
I see it in paragraph 4 and 5B, but I've missed it several times looking through it. So
It needs to go from MGD to MGY.
million gallon, yeah. Right now it says 30 whatever X
Yep.
gallons per day / per year. So it needs to read that 38 million whatever per gallons per year. Get the per day out of it.
I would maybe take it a step further. I think remember how we're, just like we just did with Spanish Peaks, we're using gallons per day per SFE as a unit of measure.
Yeah.
We are, no question.
Yeah.
And our cap out will be in 80% based on that and based on the 38,300,000.
I just have to say this one more time today. Dick's right.
You know what, Dick? Don't let it go to your head.
It's not gonna go to my head. I got a lot of people telling me.
All right, I think we need to work in that I think you two understand what we got to achieve here. It's that same formula, and we'll try to maybe mirror it. Again, we can go back to mirroring the language from Spanish Peaks a little better. So it is there will be areas where you'll use gallons per day because you talk about it down below 53.3. Yeah, which
when you get into the SFE measurement.
When you get into the trending at 80%.
Yeah.
Your gallons per day, just like we did today. So we'll clean up paragraph 4, but the goal today is this. It's not an action item, but to say, is everybody comfortable with this? You know, I don't think the three of us want to go rogue and say, hey, get this over to them, and then it comes back and we're having a situation where we have material changes that aren't consistent with the board's support.
Can we just kind of go over the water supply volume?
What paragraph?
It would fall under 7, I guess. 6 was the wells. Basically, how are we measuring or regulating the volume supplied to Flatiron that's not coming from the wells?
We will be treating Flatiron just like we would treat any other ratepayer and supply the water with the SFE until the flows get into that 80% range.
Okay.
Are you talking domestic power supply?
Yeah, domestic hours.
Yeah, they're meeting.
It'll
It'll be treated just like every other. Anything else on that one in particular?
No, that was a great question.
Brian, help me understand, when we say in the agreement that we have capacity to serve the annexation property, am I wrong that that's based on the current flow rate and SFE calculation?
And correct me if I'm wrong, and Susan can say it, but it was this. The Flatiron commitment was included in our evaluation of what we have for capacity.
Million, not SFEs at 38 million at the flow.
So it's in phase 1.
Yes.
But it's in phase 1 as SFEs.
It's
Right,
based on
I've seen
flow
phase 1 as
which-
X number of
It's
SFEs.
based on flow.
It's based on a flow.
In their technical memo, that was one of the flow-based agreements.
Yes, it's included.
So if that number of SFE changes, it doesn't affect that it's built into phase 1 of the plan.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna ask you the last one. What did you use to calculate the standard deviation of 106 or 82, whatever?
We did that one off 107.3.
Okay, plenty of room to breathe on that one.
And we're currently using 82.
So it was 107. It's at our discretion on the 82, correct? The state that's a big change since this agreement started. And we were estimating somewhere in the 54 54 gallons per day per SFE, but it's identified in the 80% as about 66, somewhere in that. So we have these pads in there as we go all the way towards it. And the key will be is tracking. And if these things spike, the good news is it's their responsibility to say, hey, we're going to get these spikes out of there. We're tracking you and you told us this when you get to that trend line.
Yeah, all I was trying to clarify in my head is that
Yeah.
if we never expand the plan, what we're committed
100%.
to, we can accomplish.
Yeah.
And personally, I hope we do expand the plan, but I mean, I don't.
I think we go back to the 2001 agreement is locked into the existing capacity
Yes,
for that plant.
100%.
And the town center is locked into it.
That's locked into it, and that's also how we got the housing trust SFEs in there too, because we put their number.
We had, that was an.
Those are a little, that one's, I wouldn't use that one again. I don't use that one much just because the housing trust wasn't a part of those estimates back in 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct. But
I mean, we didn't know about the housing trust until
But when we did the capacity letter,
Yeah,
we included
just double checking.
all our options.
But now fire lights,
Firelight
It is not.
in the canyons.
That is correct.
It is not. That's where,
So
that's phase 2A. You know, one other benefit from these flow-based agreements and Al's really hard in the accounting side is this. Look, our success in the future is expanding ratepayers, not expanding flows and things like that, but expanding ratepayers. It's a critical thing with a lot to consider. And the fact is, with these estimates, I would just say some of the numbers that we put into both agreements would say that ratepayers will go up by 75%, somewhere in that range. And maybe as high as 80%, but because that's what we're going to be tracking this to, the 80%. So when you talk about 1,000 SFEs for someone like Spanish Peaks with a 900 here, you add in, let's say 80% just to make it easy. That's 1,800 ratepayers versus 1,000 that we're carrying. Same thing with Ladder, and that to us, we looked at it as a financial bed.
So Brian, if I could.
Yep.
What, in response to Al's question, the reason you can say there is capacity is because this capacity was calculated because of the 2001 agreement. You already had that obligation and we have the capacity to serve it.
I understood that on the original 900 SFEs. My concern was
Right.
if it ends up being more, where's that capacity?
But it's the number for the 900 is flow based, where that's that flow based, and that's where we get back into the DEQ said average was 250, and then they said, well, you can do downward deviations and prove what your flow really is per unit, and then they said we're not going to regulate it at all. So frankly, the flow base is a lot easier for us to stay with than this variable, how much flow is in each SFE.
And at the time of 2001, that was down to 116.
So we keep getting a buffer, and we can turn that switch off on the SFEs as we go along, based on the data. You know, we're gonna be trying.
Moving back and forth.
Yeah.
Between flow and SFE.
Yeah.
Well, cloud is the whole thing.
You know, the hard part is we release permits based on it. We don't release flow-based permits. We release SFEs, but you've got to track those tightly. Hey, this is all great. We're not going to probably hit this wall, at least while I'm around here. But the fact is, you remove the guardrails, puts a lot of responsibility on Johnny and the board. You don't have the guardrails, so we
Keep watching.
yeah. So it's a good. We learned a lot in this agreement in particular, and I think I'm assuming Flatiron learned a lot in this. What they have. And uncertainty for all of us was next to eliminated. I mean, we don't know what the wells are, things like that. We got a source that we can work with, and we have the opportunity to do exploratory. That's a big part. Any other comments on it?
I just say I agree with your comment about expanding our customer base. I mean, that's how we either increase rates or we get more customers, right? I mean, rather do it by increasing customers. But I asked the question just to make sure that Clark's not coming to a meeting down the line and saying, yeah, I can't take any more of the plan. We gotta shut the
We gotta cut them off. All right.
How about the production allocation, providing drinking water? Very confident that we have water supply within the
We are obligated to serve them with water.
obligated, but how do we feel about our capacity to actually do so?
We have the capacity to serve them with water.
And this mostly from the mountain wells?
Mountain
wells.
Not sure which way that would come from.
Well, Lone Moose has.
Moon Moose comes from in the village.
It does come up.
It comes out of that tank.
No kidding.
Goes up there.
Wow.
Yeah, so we don't actually use Lone Moose wells or tanks, so it comes off the,
Huh. I would have thought that was gravity feed off of the resort.
oh, no, maybe it is. PRV is right there behind it. Yes, it does come
Yeah.
off the resort, so it does come off.
Well, I remember that PRV got
It's
stuck
not
on.
pumping water up there.
No, it's coming down to
It's
the.
coming down. We got a PRV right behind Lone Moose that's holding back 300 feet.
So.
So
it fits in the system.
not necessarily material to Flatirons obligations or disagreement or anything, just
Yeah, we,
anecdotally do, I mean, we've explored our capacity on the mountain and feel confident that
yeah, we can, where it's all being worked on at the same time, so. We got some more work to do, but we got wells to rehab up there too.
copy that. And then the statement paragraph 6B at the end, the landowner acknowledges that the existing infrastructure may need to be enhanced. That is the distribution structure. We have some distribution piping to Lone Moose.
Mhm.
But that would need to be increased right at the area of the subdivision or further down or the tanks below subdivision.
That's their responsibility. It's
Yeah, they would.
100% their response, and that's consistent with any other operation. I'm gonna keep using things like the Boyne Montana Club. It's worked its way out of the base area at phase one that gets you up to mid-station floor. It goes all the way up to Challenger. They have to supply the tank, the infrastructure, the mains, everything that goes in. PRVs will come in from the Cascade tank. Same template that we use for the other.
Yep.
And the same thing as coal smoke. It's same infrastructure language.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Chris, what do you have?
Process.
Finalizing your agreement, and then you guys would approve it, and then once you guys approve it and sign it, it comes back to us, and I get it in the board packet, and then we have the ordinance, which is the first read. And then the second read, and then after that, it's done, so. Perfect. If it was to start next month, it would be complete by July.
Let's work concurrently on this. You have the black line. You guys have the black line, right?
Yep.
You just heard that we have some issues with gallons per day. We just have to polish that language. It's not going to modify the material or in any material way. So you guys are, if you're on board with what you're hearing, other than errors and omissions or anything, I would work concurrently until our next meeting on this. And Susan can polish some of that language and work with your legal, and we could have a finished draft to come to vote on next month. Just keep that ready to a minimum, will you please?
All one's black.
Mailing address or something would be great to have as written, but nothing else. Okay, but I want the board 100% to. Committee put a lot of time in and just want to feel comfortable with it. Great questions, by the way. All right. We don't need to vote on it, correct?
Nope.
Yeah. Susan, anything else before we move on?
No, other than on items 2 and 3 under legal updates, I have nothing. So there you go. That'll be quick.
We can cut you right out unless there's a question on it. I'd like everybody to be efficient with their time. Okay, business action items, we'll move on to. Johnny, take it away.
Mace. Yeah, so we have been issued a letter from BSRAD that pretty much in a nutshell gives the Canyon District joint project a sunset date.
I'm sorry, I just want to double check. We had to adopt the estimated 2026 mill levy. Is that a voting item?
Yep,
It is.
you want to do that first?
We can.
I just got even with you because I did that one earlier, so now I jumped around, you jumped around.
I wasn't looking at these.
Okay.
I just,
We can put it on the screen, but
yeah, I think I closed it out, so now I gotta go.
this is the final year of our mill levy. We calculate our mill levies. We don't let the county do it. And they check us.
We hear
Give
you.
more money.
I'm just saying but we are doing it as a checks and balance, right? So this is our estimate. We're estimating 4.24 mils. The loan amount that we're paying back this year is $357,173.01. We send this estimate to them, then they give us the tax base, and then we finalize it. I do have a typo on my Mill Levy in there. I just have the wrong meeting date, so I'll correct that before I ask Brian to sign it, but I'm asking you guys to approve me sending this estimate of 4.24 mils to the counties, to both of them.
I'll make a motion to approve the mills.
Second.
Any other discussion? Thank you for that subtle comment on we do our own. Appreciate you doing that. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, now, Mace, how are you?
I'm good.
I've got about 10 reminders. Please sign this letter immediately. I didn't feel comfortable with just, it was off that to sign. All I had to do was push send. I didn't feel comfortable without your presentation to the board on exactly what we are supporting. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Great.
It gives you any confidence the Canyon Board already signed. And from our position, or from the Canyon District standpoint, is we're not a party to the first ILA anyways. And the way I describe it to the Canyon Board is this is just memorializing, there needs to be a deadline to getting this project to a go. So it's really just that acknowledgement that you're signing, and that's the answer to the Canyon District. Meanwhile, you all are a party to the interlocal agreement, and it might be worth making sure you're not shooting yourself in the foot by signing this. I don't think you are. That's not my thing. That's where I didn't need to dive into that aspect for the Canyon, because we're not tied to any agreement there. So the gist, it's about a 3-month history on this. January, Johnny and I met with Danny and Jenny, I think those two, and it was like, okay, what is the status of the project? What is needed to get it going? And we've essentially landed on a ballot initiative in early 2027 is a given almost on any front, whether it's co-solution or Canyon go it alone or anything. And so that put in motion of, okay, what do you need Canyon to hold a pace to make decisions? And at that point, we're in this match fund crunch of we are sitting on a $45,000 invoice to DEQ to even get the discharge permit in hand. Meanwhile, we put $500,000 and 3 years worth of effort into that. So we're living in this cash strapped, help us out, BSRAD. So out of that was, okay, we will support BSRAD, we will support the Canyon District, said we will support the Canyon District to the tune of $200,000 increase to our operations budget for this year, which allowed us to pay that check, keep some other things going so we didn't lose grant money and hit some match money. So 1 month after that, it was essentially Canyon's marching, but on kind of tight purse strings. BSRAD board wanting a what is your drop dead date, Canyon District? And we've landed on 2027, and that was expressed at the October Joint Commission meeting. Here's our operations ask. We need it for 2 more years, and June 30th, 2027 is our last BSRAD financial commitment to the Canyon District to keep running. So they synced that date with this letter of either the Canyon Sewer Project happens or does not happen by June 30th, 2027. That aligns with a ballot initiative in spring 2027. I think the language would have to be ready around February. Then I'm assuming it would mimic kind of last year's cold smoke that there's a communications PR component from February, March, April, and a May vote. And out of that May vote, you identify whether there's money to keep the Canyon project alive or not. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to that, but the fundamental June 30th, 2027 date is the commitment of signing this letter of acknowledging that. For you all, you are a party to the ILA that explicitly earmarks that $12 million for lift stations and conveyance maids. That's not the Canyon District component of it. So we're not even, from a Canyon District standpoint, there was no risk in signing this. And so they elected to sign it, and we're acknowledging that the project's either happening or not happening by June 30th, 2027. Questions on the Canyon District perspective of it?
I'll add a couple not complication, but other things to consider along the way. And we've been kind of drifting out there the last month on a couple of these. I just asked Johnny to put together a timeline. I mean, I'm assuming the board wants to continue to pursue a ballot initiative for the plan expansion. Is that correct? That we're doing that. So
Yeah.
I asked, because of Firelight, I mean, the question came up, is Firelight in phase one? No, it's not. And we're going to need a plan expansion, which would be, quote, a creative 2A plan expansion, minimal. We're going to hold you to that, Scott. So I just want to make sure we're all clear on this. This came up 2 meetings ago, and then it kind of drifted, as I said. And that ballot initiative that you'll be pursuing will be along with the ballot initiative that the district would be pursuing at the same time. And we're going to try to get into this timeline where we're in lockstep with what you're doing, because the two are tied together. So we need to consider that, number one. Number two, this deadline, questions that I had, it was put out there a couple months ago, as you said, and said, hey, you can sign here, move on. And that's why I said we're going to get it to the board and understand. It's somewhat of a commitment, or it's confirmation of a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, when I was getting the please sign here, I'd read it and I'd say, so if they follow suit what you just said, what does happen to the 12 million? Does it dilute the 12 million, or does it compromise the 12 million for us supporting this self-imposed deadline? That was just a question. It's not a negative. I would hate to later say, well, you signed it, and now the 12 million has uncertainty attached to it because we didn't reach that deadline. Do you see where I'm coming from, Al? You're pretty familiar with it, and Jared being on the Canyon subcommittee, but what happens to it? Does it have any impact whatsoever we were in the interlocal or on this?
Yeah, that's where the Canyon attorney did need to dive into those.
But we're not the Canyon. And
you all tied in that 12 million. We have no say in that 12 million, so we didn't have to assess that risk, reward, side effect. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean,
well, no one does, because it would have to go back to the voters to be allocated.
Right.
Use different.
Right.
So the question then is, well, what might be presented to them?
I like what you said, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is an update as well on, where are we going to be with this ballot initiative? We've because it's tied to is something that we have deadlines on in the next 6 days, and that's Firelight. We can't do Firelight without it. We've all identified it's a top priority because of the threat to our water. That triggers the plan expansion 2A.
Yeah.
They're all starting to just dovetail together. We can't make a decision on one without the other.
Yeah, I agree completely. I see a ballot initiative that is a $20+ million ballot initiative, because we know the Canyon Sewer Project, that corridor went from 12 million to $20 million scale, and we still haven't pinned down that number. Meanwhile, you got a Firelight and a phase 2 plan that you all need to be comfortable that you can pull the trigger. So I foresee a bigger ballot initiative if we're trying to stay co-solution and connect Firelight. I don't know that number. That's where the Canyon District is riding coattail passenger as it relates to the co-solution.
We actually feel like we're riding coattail to you on some of this because of the 12 million. I mean, to a certain degree, but you have the 3 issues. You have, of course, the expense that's associated with everything you're talking about. You have plan expansion 2A, which we're going to go to Scott on. And then number 3, you have the actual, the request that's coming from Firelight itself, which had some pretty high numbers in it. So we have to look comprehensively at this.
Coattail to comment. It's like the phase 2 plant is the trigger.
Yeah.
Canyon District can't define that for you, so we're actually waiting for your
Yeah.
confidence.
Chicken and the egg.
Yeah. The Canyon District, the last board meeting, they're like, Mace, we don't think the TED's happening. We think TED is dead too. If it is happening, it's going to take you 5 years to win the county over. We've got a July 2027 deadline. How do we implement something? And there's a whole spectrum of that. In our feasibility study, there was concepts of pockets of septic nets just to grab the low-hanging fruit. That doesn't solve central treatment. There was a package treatment plant option, and then there was co-solution. So the Canyon board is prepping of, if the phase 2 plant doesn't happen, the co-solution doesn't happen, what is our other options, WGM? And so that's where their head's at, is like, what can we be in the driver's seat if phase 2 doesn't happen?
So sequentially, you would think that because nothing happens without the plant. I mean, as far as right now, that's the first question. Do we get the phase 2? And not trying to say delayed or anything. For this room, we've all been through this so many times that we understand it. I'm just thinking about someone walking in and filling out a ballot right now and saying, what am I doing here? I thought we said yes to the 12 million. I thought we said this. So, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be phase 2 goes on the ballot with a good explanation alone. And not to delay the canyon in any way. It's just in a perfect world, it would be, does phase 2 happen or not? If it's yes, then the next year you'd have the ballot initiative, or the next period. And then on both those items. And then it would be canyon and Firelight. But I'm not saying we deserve preferential. It just seems sequentially since
We're the
both.
passengers.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say it, you did. We just don't want to be that entity that says we're first. That's all. It's just, we went, and just a quick recap again for the board. Al and Amy, Johnny and I went to BSRAD the week before Thanksgiving. And we said, we've got to get this Firelight, and we've got to get this. And we said, we're going to set these deadlines. And April's the finish line. We just need clarity where we're going. That's all. I mean, I just don't feel comfortable going to that Monday meeting and without having clarity on a timeline and where we want to go with this. And then we run out of runway for a ballot initiative. And it seemed like the ballot initiative, Al, that we had heard back then, or a while back when we talked about it early on, was you got to have your ducks in a row by November.
I didn't remember being that early, but we need to be committed toward it, I think, by November.
Yeah.
And
So
maybe all our information in place by January, February-ish, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just, we just have to understand, where we're at. Hey, the good news is it's April still.
Yeah.
Even if it's November, even if it's December or January, we just got to get clarity. I just don't feel like we're a great team here. It's how do we just get in the right seat on it? But by no means am I personally speaking for the board or saying, hey, put us first and you delay it. To me, it's just so clear. You throw them all on at once, and what if Firelight gets it? Because everybody says, yeah, we got to solve Firelight, but then we don't have the plant expansion or the seems sequential. That's all. But
A lot hinges on you guys being comfortable that phase 2 of the plant is happening.
we'll stick around for Scott's presentation.
Yeah. I'm not going right. I think so. This agenda item is the letter, and then I think I'm after Scott for another candy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's make
Mace, is it your sense that the co-solution in the phase 2 plant expansion is still the preferred solution by the county ministers?
I think you got about a 50-50. Like it comes down to the likely, how big is the ballot initiative dollar amount going to be? Is it going to be a $20 million ask? Is it going to be a $30 million ask? Is it going to be a $40 million ask? What is the structure, and can resort tax satisfy that ask, even if the ballot initiative passed? So it comes down to that. What's the scale of that ask that we're asking of the voters, which is going to give the Canyon District optimism versus pessimism of the co-solution is viable come June 30th, 2027.
Were you thinking more of what the Canyon board is thinking right now? I mean, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. What's the preferred solution for the Canyon board?
I think co-solution, if it's financially feasible, they're seeing that financially feasible hinges on north of 20, that 12 million has to be bigger than, well, it's gonna be 20-ish. If the co-solution isn't financially feasible, you do have a small pocket of developer group that the quarry, for example, is gonna spend half of or $5-ish million scale on septic nets. And they need to make that decision sooner than later. And once they start spending on septic nets, they don't have much to cut a check for post solution, whether it's cutting a check to Big Sky Water Sewer District for treatment or the concept of a package treatment plant down on the north end of the quarry. And we stopped looking at the go it alone solution in 2024. Obviously, a high level, we think it would cost this. If they sense that the co-solution is going to stall, they're going to want to run those numbers again. Let's get that go it alone solution priced out in $20-26. Is it 20 million, 30 million, 40 million? What is the scale? Is that financial feasible?
You mentioned time sensitivity. Are they comfortable with wading through a ballot initiative at this point?
Yeah, I think they know to do the project right requires BSRAD dollars to subsidize existing septics. Otherwise, there's no way that private development is going to carry the bill to fix the historic septics. So they're comfortable waiting for the ballot initiative.
When you said that the TED, you hate to say it's not feasible given the timeline, is the TED pretty much being extracted from the formula at this point?
In the Canyon board's mind, yes. Okay. In my mind, no. I'm not optimistic that
this is great. This is a good update today.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't know if it was still either. I guess the question would be, is it BSRAD's position that without the TED they won't support? That was a concern. It was just, it's a question, it's not a position.
I still generally sense that.
Okay, so you sense that BSRAD will require a TED to fund the Canyon?
To fund it at $20 million scale.
Okay, see, that's a big issue with the ballot initiative too. You know, if that is going to be a condition, and it just changes the dynamics a little bit. If they said, look, we'll put the ballot initiative out there, we'll support it if you can get support, great. If it's ballot initiative and a TED, that's a different animal. So
that becomes kind of BSRAD driven. The Canyon probably isn't marching hard on a TED other than Maze, can you build some momentum with the commissioners? But they're not going to spend $100,000 to do all the paperwork. And
too many headwinds with the commissioner.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Great update.
Yeah.
Can I sign the letter?
Do we need motion to approve that?
I just want to be in the record that I didn't sign it rogue. That's all.
Well done.
Go on.
Motion for Brian to sign the.
Just want to be that guy. Okay. Second.
Forgiveness. I'll second.
All in favor of allowing me to.
I would just like to say, it's my perception that you're acknowledging that BSRAD set a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
You're not agreeing that that deadline should be set, but you're acknowledging, you're signing the letter, which when I read the letter, that's what they're saying is, we're setting this deadline, you're acknowledging that we set the deadline.
Got it.
Perfectly comfortable with you signing what I just said. I'm less comfortable saying you agreed to their deadline.
I was going to say, or support a deadline. I don't think the board supports a self-imposed deadline for this, given everything we just talked about.
Because this is incredibly complicated, and when things like a TED get thrown on top of it, it makes it even more challenging to make this happen. But at the end of the day, I still think, and this is my personal opinion, that in the best interest of Big Sky long term, connecting this makes a ton of sense and continues to support a pretty significant investment that this community has already made in that plant.
Great clarification.
So should it say acknowledgement but not acceptance?
Or support.
I just motioned that he was signing the letter.
No, yeah, and I'm comfortable with it. I'm just stating that when I read the letter, it says what I just said.
Yeah.
So
You know what? It's recorded. The good news right now with that clarification.
BSRAD could always extend their own deadline if they came to a point, but they're putting it out there that they would like some resolution to this issue.
And we could encourage them to do that should we reach some roadblocks in 3 or 4 months that we didn't anticipate now, but it's still.
Yeah, there's no state that we couldn't request more time, but yeah. Needs to get.
All right, it's in the record. The clarification. Any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Jared, you okay with it? Since you're on the canyon deal too, so you're on the subcommittee tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, budget CIP, adopt the estimate. BSRAD feasibility level, new business, annual budget CIP, we've covered that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now we're on to project update. Scott, please. Just for Susan, not to jump around on it, but we covered it pretty well on the Flatiron side. Do we need Susan on?
No. I don't know that she's on.
Okay, I just saw her up there a minute ago, but
Yeah, she's on.
hey, Susan, unless the board has something else where we probably could cut Susan loose. Okay. Okay, all right.
Scrolling to our letter.
Trying to get to it. Okay.
We already went over the work performance, which is exceptional. No real, but that was these past months. It's all good. Zach's making good progress on the biosolids update, the $4 million project. Should be able to get to bidding later this year. He's got a very detailed run through on the tasks that he's got to complete here, where they are on that. Storage reservoirs he's also working on, but we all acknowledge that one's going to be hard to just generate a storm. We all decide if we pull trigger on doing it. Reuse management program. Johnny's walked us through scope update for finishing that essentially. That last time we touched that, the plant hadn't yet been completed. We hadn't gotten through all the A-1 compliance through with PQ. We also didn't have the salinity reduction plan completed. So basically to tie all that together, meet with DEQ, lay out final compliance details in the plant versus in reservoirs for A-1. So Ryan will walk through that scope and feed timing. Wait till I'm done with my letter. Got some other chunks that we want to present, so I'll just keep going through the letter. Firelight Meadows, a lot of moving pieces and parts there as well. Johnny again has walked us through a detailed scope of work there to basically represent you all, and we can get through final negotiations of how that is all going to go down. Then we switch to the engineering of connecting the wastewater, connecting the reuse system, and then
parking water for the time being to some future day. So Brian Thompson's also running that and we'll cruise through that scope. Galvin Canyon just touched on water master plan. David Carlson's here. You all seen that. It's pretty much done and buttoned up and delivered. Brian Graff's still helping, especially with CIP discussions and details and laying out
Yeah,
that program.
next month we should have an updated WICSIT for you guys to look through.
We approve that, I assume,
We'll have to, yeah.
prior to the next fiscal year. It can be done at any time because it's kind of a standalone, but we review it every year and that's the one that's gonna adjust the most, so it's tying in some of the stuff on CIP, not all of it, but you know, we definitely want to look at it every chance we get.
And you want Brian here for remote next
Yeah.
month, present that.
Remote should be fine, I think. We'll make sure that you and I are done. We should be fine.
Sweetgrass, we have David Carlson here who's running through that. That scope and fee has been in development for almost a year, I think, at this point. And Clark is taking over working with David on what that looks like. I mean, this is a lot. Talk about this, that just have 3 scopes in front of you today for reuse, firelight, sweetgrass, not shoving all this on your plates and saying, here they are, they're ready. We'll pull the trigger on them, they're ready.
When are we looking at Sweetgrass? We have a, I don't know.
It's in the next 5 years.
And cost on that? TBD.
Well, he's
Who's that will be?
Oh, okay.
A lot.
That seems to be pretty frequent refrain.
District engineering services, so that's the basically city engineer work that we do for you, the on-call work. I just wanted to touch on one thing that so James Sledman came to me and said, here are these invoices for panel and network equipment. Pay for them. That said, wow, those are big numbers. Were we all under the same understanding that the district was going to buy equipment through us that we would pay for out of their budget? And he said, yes, that's my marching orders. Is pay these invoices out of this budget. So just be aware that those, you know, are on the order of $10,000-$15,000 items.
I didn't know that we agreed to put it in the budget. I thought we were pulling it out and putting it in the IT budget, to be honest.
Yeah, that's where I thought.
I think so. I don't think those servers, that needs to be in our IT budget. I have that slated there. So not engineering services.
Okay.
You and I will follow up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how I.
Because I grew up with James pretty hard.
Yeah.
We just get
He
frustrated.
was sourcing them and we.
It's part of my IT budget.
That's what I thought is,
Okay. Yeah.
James, they want you charge of what to order because it's so excruciating.
Yeah, we need
Specific.
it to be specific to what our needs are with those SCADA systems. That's why we asked for this assistance, but no, that's not.
Thank you.
Okay.
I like that better. Who deserves that budget for
It's
soft
the,
cost versus.
it's the right thing. And I'm the one planning for server replacement, except for his 2 servers. So it's, yeah, everything's a little conjoined, but no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Budget updates, that helps, this number I believe reflects taking out that, those 2 servers.
Okay.
So, back to that. Biggest budget we have right now, aside from that is, if there's this still sitting out there, I think we should just formally cancel that. At least on our end, get it out of our software is. Mid-Mountain Booster Station is.
We've taken that. Oh, wow.
So I'll do that, and then Zach. Still has $220,000 to design work he's chewing through on biosolids. For you all.
Does booster station upgrade come back with Firelights connection though? Is that conversation
Yes,
happen? Okay.
yes, and, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but we wanna dig into that to figure out how much of that would be Firelight Meadows cost active. Right, like, it's a portion, it's
Yeah,
a tricky portion of the cost of building these booster station that should be assigned to Firelight.
Yeah, for instance, like we budgeted the design of the valve ball to go off of the main stem reuse transmission to Firelight Meadows. That's in the booster station design work.
Yeah.
So when that time comes, we'll have to figure out how to handle that.
because in your memo previously, we had funds for that in there. I've already kind of thrown around, just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
It's gonna be interesting judgments. Deserves to pay, but. Okay, portion of it. Water policy interim committee meeting, this. I don't know what we want to say about this.
There's not much to say now because the story came out right after that. I believe everybody got to see.
Yeah.
Right before I left, gotten a lot of emails, kudos, well said. Even got follow up. Brad Neva reached out to me asking if I was interested in talking to another Senate panel or some panel that he's bringing in. And then, yeah, I'm going to be talking to Madison commissioners, something here pretty soon too. So good ripple effect. I thought it went very well. They asked some things.
None of us knew what we were walking into. Let's say that exactly. We weren't coached up in detail of how that was all going to go. When it was really turned into, tell us about your story.
Yeah,
and I think in the end, they're just looking to you all at this point as the research experts in Montana. Tell us how it worked, what could have gone better. They're trying to facilitate more use in the state. And you all are the leading let out for everybody else. And it's sort of like, tell us how it went. You would do differently, you were us.
there were some good questions. Yeah, it was interesting. Oh, it just continues. Okay, so it looks like, it was coordinated and well rehearsed or whatever, but that was small. We were winging it, but it was good. I thought so.
So the way this is ordered in the packet would be David coming up and talking about sweetgrass design. And then Ryan would walk you through Firelight Meadows and the reuse management scopes. Completely up to you all. And again, this is meant more informational. We're not saying you got to do this now. We're ready with scope and fee estimates. Tell us when we've done.
I know Firelights is going to be a little bit more of a discussion. We got about 9 more minutes for a couple. So.
Oh, right, they're leaving at 10. Yeah.
You're gonna take a timeline too.
So
What do you want to see here first?
Actually, better than Paul last night. That's surprising. I'm well versed. So
Okay,
you guys name.
Let's knock out sweetgrass. It's short.
okay. So David, you want to come up like run the controls?
So he's coming up. I know we talk about sweetgrass but it's the old Meadow Village system. And we're at capacity in this system. And so now what you're seeing is the next phase of how we're going to increase the capacity of the system to help with the supplies and demand of storage with the system. And so Sweetgrass tank is an intricate part of that storage. When cold smoke comes in, cold smoke's really going to cover cold smoke, just like Firelight would just cover Firelight. So when we get water into an area, it's really hard to get it back out, especially in cold smoke, because we'd have to put in stuff to pump it back up the hill. and stuff. So Hidden Village and Sweetgrass are kind of Meadow Village and Town Center and all that. So you got you ebb and flow to push out. So we got the storage for peak demands of the day, plus fire flow has got to be calculated into the tanks. So
But where does the water come from for coal? You say coal smoke covers coal smoke.
so it
They'll
comes
have their
out-
own tank, we know
They'll
that.
have their own tank, so it comes out of Meadow Village, but when it goes down the hill, it pretty much stays in Coltsville.
So it comes from the Meadow Village wells,
Wells, yes.
golf course wells.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So tech, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't counting on finding water over there, but it's coming
No.
from the source in the Meadow Village.
It's coming from the source over there. So basically your whole distribution system is stored. All your pipes in the ground is storage and all that. And then we have the tanks for the peak daily demands of the system. And that's where we're at now. We're, 3,500 residents. We see 7,000 to 8,000 a day. Meadow Village can hit the peaks and have 15,000 people on a concert. I think 12 is the record. So, the constant daily demand. Well, we're at capacity.
That irrigation being 5 to 7 tons, that kills you, the irrigation.
So every time we hammer the system where we're pushing the system closer to 100%, we're at a higher risk failure. And something happened, let alone if a fire breaks out or anything. So then you have a Palisades where you've exhausted and the wells can't keep up and you pumped out all your water and you're done. And so what we're trying to do is plan for that. So pipes have to be upsized, tanks have to be upsized, wells have to be upsized. And with anything, you start at the wells and kind of work your way out. So we've got to start rehabbing wells, increasing the pumping capacity of wells to be able to pump. And then your lines can only carry so much. So then you start replacing lines. And then you get to your tank and then, come back into the system. So I just wanted to preference that. I know that, Sweetgrass is low density, but we're talking about the system and the Sweetgrass system and how it plays with it. With that, are you ready?
Yep. You're ready. Okay. That's, I was thinking about, Al, thanks for the tee up on, I'm so glad they talked about the emotional part of water instead of the data driven black and white budget part. I was like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna get up here and let's be the emotional water part. I'm gonna just skip through quite a bit of it. Don't cry. Yeah, exactly. So on the updates for Sweetgrass, that's Johnny and Clark have been kind of teeing it all up. Just to recap, we're talking about expanding the Sweetgrass tank, trying to push that as big as we want. Ideally, we want 750,000 gallons in that zone because it does float a huge part of the water system. It's really a 3-linked piece here of is expanding the tank. We got a fire pump improvement at the booster station there, and then the upper Sweetgrass tank as well. I would say, and that kind of all came out. This was last in the master plan, right? So all these nodes up in here are all showing fire flow. Normally we want 1,500 gallons a minute from fire hydrants. Those are all in the 500 to 600s. As Nick Clark's getting ready for ISO ratings, all that stuff. Like a lot of hand in glove here. Operations going on. What I want to skip to, so at the master plan, we shown how had this preliminary CIP, the top part being all these fire flow improvements just for this one area. These have gotten, to your point, Dick, these are really big numbers. And in terms of tank storage, pipeline improvements all over that area. And we were, saying, okay, we got to make sure we figure out how we pay for that. I think in conjunction with that, where that's really taken this conversation now, we look at the whole screenshots. You get the existing Sweetgrass tank at the booster station, lifting water to upper Sweetgrass. You guys have the new site parcel from Northwestern. Now that's all locked down for the future tank. And I think being budget conscious of trying to make sure we're getting all those, red, down triangles out of the black and white data. I think we've kind of retweaked some of the scope approach here to rather than just being gold whole hog. The original, I'd say 6 months ago, I think the plan was probably a little bit more. How big of a tank can we get right on that parcel and just focus on that, get this done, 30% done. And I think in kind of where budgets are at, trying to, more spend money a little more wisely, Clark and I, and have kind of been going through is more, but let's take one step back real quick and look at these 3 sites and which ones do we want to do first and where are we spending the right money in the right spot. And so we've kind of tweaked that approach a little bit more to where it's really looking at the existing tank, the other site in that upper part. So Scott was right. I mean, I'm not here with task order yet. I think more from the board's perspective, I'd love to just see if we're on the right track with a little bit more of a let's get the dollars. Let's figure out what sequence we want to do these 3 improvements on, and Dick, to your point of is exactly what it is going to cost. That this site right here, even just the future tank. That is no. This site here, we have the north, here's the existing Sweetgrass site, there's the new one with Northwestern Energy, that red line, being is the overhead transmission line going through there. That has a huge cost impact. Northwestern's got some existing infrastructure on there that, as I understand it from Roy, that they're planning to keep there. So there's some site constraints, there's things like that are risks. So risks add costs, and that's why we probably would normally be looking at a 500,000 gallon tank in the $4 million range, but we're like, we got transmission lines and stuff like this. This could be twice that. So I think that's part of this effort that we want to really get down is get smarter about prices. Within that, that's the overhead line coming down through the sites. These are existing transformers. Where the red sounds like Northwestern's planning to keep those. If we need to move those, that's something we're gonna have to figure all that stuff out. So this is inside the booster station. To my own take, I loved this electrical gear in here, by the way. That is like a great harvest gold. It was like almost an avocado. And it's just like this has taken me back. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen harvest gold electrical equipment. I was like, love this, but obviously some facelift improvements ready. This pump, the fire pump for this feeds the upper Sweetgrass. That's one of those improvements as well. So where does this all really head towards was the scope of work as kind of envisioned here is let's get a topo survey on the site, on the new Northwestern site. Let's get all the boundaries figured out. Let's figure out how big of a tank we can get on there. Let's figure out how that ties to the existing Sweetgrass tank. How do we maximize the storage volume between those 2 sites? Let's figure out what needs to happen on the booster station. How does that tie into pipes to fit operations the best? How does that integrate in? We've even talked about, using the existing routing. There's actually kind of a trail that goes up around the north side, and that's a better pipe routing as well. Let's get down to some real numbers for cost and really get that kind of ready in a 15% design level is the goal. To that point, to just give an ideas, these are big numbers here, 7 to 10 million. We got a lot of money here in Sweetgrass upcoming in the future 5 years. And so we're thinking, let's do this first $115,000 step first. That's advancing those 3 sites. So we're pulling the right trigger on the right one. And, 7 to 10 million, that's a huge swing. I mean, that's a big spread in those numbers from how do we plan for rates? How do we tie, what do we need to get for grant funding, all that. So I think it seems like a better step rather than just push forward with that tank sightings. Let's get our numbers short up. That's where I'm at. And if you guys feel differently, let me know. But that was kind of where we were thinking to take this for the next steps. I've got kind of a timeline there. If we start in May, that's probably having this stuff wrapped up by the late summer. That way we're kind of going into November probably with an idea of exactly where are we going to spend those monies. That's kind of what I'll take that next step towards. Brian, you got a question you were mulling on there?
I can just tell you when we were first going through this, and Alan and I visited up there, the biggest flag I could see up there was geotech and doing bore tests. Isn't that shouldn't that be the top priority to figure out what the soil conditions are for size and massing?
I've asked Northwestern if they have anything from when they had it as a sub. I don't think.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
But did we do bore tests? I mean, I'm
It
thinking,
is, I haven't seen, I just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
That's all.
I want to make sure that,
No,
What's
we
that?
did it. We did it. We paid a significant amount.
Okay.
So we can always continue.
So,
Yeah.
admittedly, I'm at a disadvantage if you know that, but yes,
no, it's just, I just want to make sure it wasn't just
still,
one bucket of dirt to say, what are the soils? When you start getting into, million-gallon tank or subterranean, you're probably gonna have to do some, maybe a step up, or maybe it is adequate, but all started with sizing based on the soils.
exactly, yeah. And then to that point, this is looking up the hill. Brian, you get this existing retaining wall, I mean, we got from this retaining wall over to these transformers, it's tight. That's where I think, getting a good detailed topo survey on there as well. So
Interesting to
really
really
grade that site out. Because if we gotta go subterranean, we got dirt we gotta get rid of, or we use that out. There's just a ton in there that we're gonna get a lot smarter as we get going.
Remember with the BSOA, remember they're trying to put us in the BSAC on this for height and multi-plate things. Part of that subcommittee was saying that we had to keep it within a consistent height and all that. And that's the only reason I triggered the geotech is, are we factoring in a multi-plate or a concrete?
Yes.
Expand?
Tank style, tank heights, how we're kind of linked into wanting to float it with the existing tank from a height. I think the top is gonna be about the same. The bottom of the tank though, that's what we want to play with, exactly. There's value in keeping it the same, but if there's just going down a little bit, help from a volume, or can we not go down in the site? There's just a ton in there. So I'm excited to get smarter about all this.
The other one you'd want to start designing in a spillway, which would have to go down in the BSOA open space. That'll require a spillway, I'm assuming, no matter what tank you design.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Tank
And
style.
that can be,
Yep.
it can be extensive depending on the size. In other words, if that tank failed, where does that water go? We'll be back at the BSOA, Dick, so I'll expect you to take that one on.
Well,
As soon as possible.
they're a different organization.
I know. Yeah.
Before, so I think that's favorable. But I think too, one of the things we talked about back then was if there could be potential cost savings or efficiencies or other considerations that if we needed to speak with them about maybe changing the boundaries of the site and swapping land to, if it justified cost effectiveness, considering that most of the people that would be paying for that would be BSOA members.
Yes.
So why wouldn't they want to save their members money if there's the possibility? So they're probably someone they're gonna want to consult with through this process at some point. And if there are ideas that kind of stretch beyond the boundaries, it's something worth having that discussion.
We can make sure we include that. Yeah, not knowing any of the previous negotiations and all that.
You don't
stuff,
wanna-
I was like,
Yeah, it's a new generation.
And that's, and to be fair, people we were talking about before aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you realize that our customers and their members are the same people, why would we do something that would cost more money?
Yeah.
That makes sense for you.
Since you have a blank slate right now.
Yep.
To a certain degree. But those are things we knew at the time as well. We didn't want to complicate the negotiation. For sure.
Did you guys, another just question while we're talking about land negotiations. Amy and I had gotten all the land agreements and all that stuff, and I'd gone through that when we did the land swap as I'm kind of catching up to that. One thing that didn't stand out super clear to me was just that, was there any conversations about that existing power line with Northwestern about relocating that? Does anyone recall? I just, it's an innocent question. I
don't recall any conversations about relocating that.
I had a short conversation with Roy about it, just say, hey, we're working on this, we're gonna be chatting more. And he was like, well, I mean, all that stays, we'll be happy to, entertain that if you guys wanted to move it, at your guys' expense. And I was like, I don't know, Roy, I'm looking at these agreements and I pulled up this exhibit for the board just because that orange line is showing in there as a relocated line in one of those exhibits. And I was like, I don't know, Roy, it seems like someone was thinking about moving that, and it was interesting to see the tone change. I was like, well, you should probably, why don't you guys visit a little bit and then come back and we'll dig up on that. I was like, okay, there must be something here, but maybe there isn't. So I'm not saying we need to do that, but obviously that would maximize more of that site, if that was the case. So.
Yeah, I wasn't there, they were leaving. Anything behind? But that site was.
Yeah,
I didn't even know about the transformers up there.
Yeah, we knew those were there.
Okay.
I think
So,
until we
that's-
never got around to designing anything, so we really didn't know what we need to change.
And that's fair, right? And that's why we want to do this step now. So I just, anytime we obviously we follow that power line all the way all over on the.
can you go back to that site plan, the aerial? Yeah, please. Interesting.
Which is the new existing power line,
The red one is existing.
existing, yeah.
That's the
And
one.
where did you get that exhibit?
That was in the land agreements as I was going through it. It's like the second to the last page of,
Yeah, I just don't
the
remember.
land swap.
That is bizarre.
He was really quick to be like, oh, you guys, you can get that, we'll get you a price on that. And I was like, I don't even want to imagine what I'm relocating it.
So you're 10,
Exactly, right, that's kind of where I'm like, it seems like a smart investment to get to that next step, so we can really understand what these costs are gonna be. Or if that's even just we cut bait on it altogether, we just build a shorter tank, call it good. So
I don't think Big Sky, I'm thinking about ways on that, I keep thinking spillway dropping down into that property below. I don't think Boyne owns that Big Sky Resort LLC.
this one right here,
There's something wrong. See you guys. But I mean, you might want to factor that in unless they, that's strange.
I know that Clark, can I get that, kind of in the scope of work for Johnny or that coordination with them? Is that Johnny, how does that work in terms of, I'm assuming that's not me calling them, even is there like a subcommittee that does that kind of work?
With the
District? No, sorry, back on the district or the BSOA. How do you guys engage with them? If you're saying, oh, you're gonna want to talk to them.
You want to talk to us first. We want to make sure we get the right people at the right time.
Okay, something's good, okay.
Introduction.
I usually ask.
Introductions are everything.
I usually ask before calling, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
It's always would be. I mean, she's more focused on this over here than she will do that.
But she also was part of the end of making sure all the easements were executed, and there's one outstanding one for the construction here, so she's aware of it, she's not completely. Unaware, so let's circle back. And show the right party.
Yeah, let's get the green light going and then I can start all this stuff, so. That's good to know too, that's good opportunities to get some more sight and present them for our partners. I love that.
I know that came up in those initial conversations. But we didn't necessarily spell anything out, so we got back.
I'm more surprised at the existing and what that easement looks like. Maybe there isn't an easement because you don't have an easement to yourself when they sold it, so. Or transferred it. I mean, they wouldn't have had an easement to themselves going through there.
But they have an easement across Boyne or BSOA's open space.
Right.
Yeah, they now have through those. Through the land swap agreements, from what I understand, they now have an easement on the district for a parcel there through the. So. Whether that was the intention or not, that's like we.
Jimmy Clark talked about SRO, is that finance through SRO likely?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to, once we know like the dollar amount we want to target for, is it 7, is it 10, is it 5? Then yes, I think this all tees up to an SRF, grant application for getting loan funds, all that stuff, so.
Is there a point in time where having the tank online becomes critical? Or is it a fire flow ISO issue.
This is identified in the current system right now as a fire flow efficiency. Yeah. So I'm expecting this to come up in ISO for those upper zones.
So
Yeah.
reasonable, emergency. I'm trying to get it. I'll see if we can get it up with the also training rolling versus budgets.
To that point, Scott, what I was thinking was, assuming we're on the right path to, it sounds like we are. We get started here in May. Come back at the next board meeting, get, hey, this is on the right track. We do want to get all three of these to figure out the right balance. Let's get our numbers shook out. That tees us up well to be done in late summer. So with fall, then that we can plan this grant applications that we start putting out in December. Then for next year, and then so that way we can start targeting those, get some of the grants like next year. So it's good timing now to get started. That's why we're here. Does that make sense on timing? What Scott's saying?
Yeah, I'm just asking a question. Help them cue it up. The other things that they're staring down.
I'd pull that title report on that access. I'd pull the title report on the access and that and an easement that goes through the property. Just wondering, just something's not, I just can't remember seeing that on there.
Okay. Yeah. I'll follow with that. Around that, just to make sure.
Yeah, Ryan just pointed out too that you do have a project on the intended use plan with SRF right now. It's to fix the tank. On the village, you should probably reach out to them, take that off, That one, please.
500,000 gallon tank in the core?
Yeah, the one that has the foundation.
That's the one right there behind you.
Yeah, right behind the hunt.
Yeah.
And that's not in operation at all right now.
That actually would get replaced. It's the one we've been talking to Boyd about moving further.
Is that the one off the Explorer?
Yeah. Musket always wanted to create a completely different telemetry going in that area. And where it looped through rather than going all the way up to the Cascade Booster, I think. And he would isolate the lower zone for just the village and then have that circulation up there into Montana Club and above. But the key is you got to stay in touch with Boyd on that. They're going to have to build a tank for Montana Club anyway.
I think that's where I pointed out it was very low ranking. My point being that you don't necessarily have to have all your ducks in a row all the time about you being and SRF, intended use plan and SRF, because they may not give you certainly a grant. But if we're financing these projects with SRF, the sooner we get on there, the better.
Good plan.
Well, let us know if otherwise, but otherwise, our next steps then would be get it on paper, come back to the board with, probably then 115, about $100,000. Think about that for spending on getting these projects going to then get that next to keep that in the people. Otherwise, let us know. But that's where we're at. So, Johnny Clark, did I miss anything that we want to?
David.
Thank you. Yeah, who's next on the hot seat?
I think it's me.
Yeah, which one is first here?
Firelights first, sunlight. And we've been through, Johnny, 3 iterations of this, trying to chop it up just right. It's the urgency, I think Brian, Johnny and I talked back in December, we gotta get this signed up by January, February. That urgency slipped because we watched HOH Southport Farmland Meadows struggle with their end of what they had to complete, what their work did before this becomes more of an inevitability for you all to engineer.
To recap, you're working with them as well, right, Mace?
Yeah.
So Mace is doing an evaluation for HLH.
No, Firelight.
I'm sorry, Firelight. Who is HLH getting theirs from then? I'm sorry.
Derek did theirs.
Got it.
Who's Derek? Exing engineering.
So you're tracking in parallel and we can talk freely, right? We don't have to say, well, you're the clients and things like that. Well, we're merging together.
Yeah, I don't know if HLH and Firelight Meadows are closer.
No closer than a month ago. I don't even know if part of it was a big number to buy them out, and it's based in a non-starter that Firelight won't be able to afford to buy out HLH plus pay Big Sky Water and Sewer District to connect. It'd be impossible.
Well, I mean, again, we're evaluating, you guys are doing the appraisal on it, right? Yeah. And that's what the important part is for everybody involved. I think we'll be partners with Firelight in this request or this proposal or the financial model. And the two parts to it, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, would be some type of an RSID and some type of a BSRAD request, right? And then you'd put a value on the reuse or disposal that they have based on your analysis for the district. But is it even public information, or is it just that I ran into a couple of people that had a letter from HLH that put over a $6 million valuation on this?
Yeah, that was the current status. And
so that's what the board needs to understand right now is we have a delta here from, we believe it's a liability, most likely with the rehab on that system, and they think it's 6 million. Well, Firelight can't buy, first of all, they can't buy it without all of us being on the same page with a fair and reasonable, because we can't go in and support that with BSRAD. So if we have that wider delta at this point, then as we prepare for the next meeting with BSRAD, since we have our deadline, that where are we at? What are we doing?
Understand that that's a Firelight HLH that's a non-starter. That's what they're sorting through.
Okay, so that's kind of we're at the finish line, right? I mean, that we set it back, it was actually November, we laid this plan out and we updated it in January to say, hey, we'll have enough time to get everything done in April. But
right, I remember
if it was going to be this unreasonable, and I'd go on the record with it, it's crazy unreasonable unless we miss something, then we're not there. Now, the third component, I'll wait till maybe Dick's back on this one, is we talk about where we want to go on Monday afternoon. And do you ever communicate with their appraisers on the person preparing theirs?
Me personally, no. That's a correspondence between Firelight board, attorneys, and whoever represents HLH, but me personally.
Okay. All right, so you have that component to it. So Dick, what we're just talking about is kind of a deadline coming up right now, where we said we need to get on the same page this Monday with BSRAD and evaluating Firelight, how it would work. Each entity had its own appraisal, is working through their own appraisal or evaluation of it. And early on, we said, this thing's a liability, potentially a liability. And we'll have to work, and expectations were, I don't know, we joked around and said, I mean, if they say it's worth $1 million, can we absorb $1 million? Whether it's 6 million plus. So that gets thrown out. And in the meantime, I mean, we just can't let this continue over there because of the threat it is. In the meantime, Johnny, before he was on the road a little bit there, they sent a proposal saying, hey, I'll tell you what, well, you treat for us. We'll send it to you, and then we would basically send it back to them, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of an odd situation. We'll do it on a flow-based agreement of treatment. And that's something that I think formally the board has to at least be aware of and consider before you respond. But I think it deserves a response because the sooner we get that off the table, the sooner we can get to a realistic negotiation. Does that make sense? That, I mean, 6 million is unreasonable. And the board needs to consider if there's any, what response there is to you just become a treatment source for us on a flow base. Okay, so those are does that kind of tie this up so we're all on the same page before we get into, if it's gonna be 6 million, it's just a non-starter. I mean, nothing against your report, it's just none of this makes sense and we need to understand that.
Yeah, I agree.
But we just got hit, with the sledgehammer on this thing. So piece by piece, what's the board's position on HLA saying, hey, we're in a pinch and they had a deadline. Will you just treat our sewage?
I don't think it's anything we should consider.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, they got, yeah. I think sounds like a Firelight and HLH need to get some things figured out before we even burn any energy on this. I mean,
Personally, I think the next step, I mean, we still got stuff coming. Shane was still waiting on a couple of reports and we got what you had engineers or groundwater TSI. So we're not even sure what we can get back over there as far as disposal and all that stuff. But I think it's another subcommittee group getting the 3 entities and having everybody in the same room. So we all can see where everybody's at and we can share that. But I mean, I'm with you. What I see is some hurdles that with the service agreement of dealing with Public Service Commission, which we don't want. And so, we still got annexation, we're still planning on putting that in place of use and stuff. So kind of, been envisioning almost like what Spanish Peaks is. We do the sewer and the water system's a water system, but a service agreement, Susan actually shot down probably a year ago. Taking something in outside of our district when you still have to demonstrate capacity. And just the way we're set up, it'd be better served to annex it in and then serve it and, bill it accordingly without having to go through another entity or.
who wants to deal with that?
Exactly.
That's nobody. And I mean, break that one off.
That's an easy
right now. Yeah, it's
You think of their history, I think in their letter to you there's a pending $60,000 fine.
Well, it was to Susan and then Susan forwarded it to me, but yeah, I believe
So they've been failing since 2016.
Right.
Consent order 2018. And I'd say if you're in the room, this thing's a disaster. Why would we ever want to be a part of it? Because think about the last detail to this. We go into a service agreement, they send it to us, their drain field fails. Now where do we send it?
Right.
Part of the service agreement is you send it back to us on enforcement, to going up to a club, and then you get a lot of engineering. Why would we ever establish a partnership given the history?
yes, I if it's a vote, no. And they need to go get it figured out. I mean, it sounds like Firelight and this group need to talk about a few things before we burn any energy on it.
Yeah.
I think
That's what I'm at.
it just doesn't. This process needs to play out, and we're not a part of it until they get themselves organized.
Well, the one thing I think we can do today, Mike, and the concern I have is we're going to be the kind of the scapegoat that we went to, that when they're failing with the DEQ, they're going to say we sent a letter to them back in February or March and they didn't get back to us till May. I want to be able to, if the board feels this way, say not just no, but hell no. No, we don't want.
Yeah.
You need to fix this up. You're a threat to us.
Right.
And this is not an option we would pursue.
I'm very comfortable saying that. And I agree we need to respond to at least check
Sooner
that
rather
one off
than
the box, and then Firelight and this we can figure out evaluation, and then we can move our process forward. We've already spent a pile of cash on Firelight. And it feels like there's like this big circular, we're gonna get into that again.
Yeah.
They need to get themselves organized and figured out. And an evaluation, whatever that is, but $6 million, that's what they're wanting for what a failed system. I don't understand how that all comes together. But us infusing ourselves at this particular time, I think only allows this process to play out even longer. And so my vote would be no, sending a letter to that effect. And we look forward to chatting down the road when you guys get yourself organized.
It's not an action item, but does everybody support sending a letter?
Yeah.
I do, and if there are whatever the valid business reasons are for not doing it, I think we should share those in the letter. So it's got some substance to it besides just, no, we're not interested.
So that they get on with it. So now, great, I think Johnny, I do it sooner rather than later since this has been out there for over 5 weeks, I think it's. So now we can move on to the next topic.
Where's DEQ on this right now?
Well, great question. Johnny said all winter. TDEQ, I've been trying with Matt Wade, Lindsay Krasuski, and they're willing to talk, but we're not the owner, right? We have no power here. We have nothing but to say, yes, we would like to take them over and send treated water there in excess of what they send us. That's our interest.
What about their potential harm to our system here? You know, the data from the wells and everything.
There's literally 15 at least years of documentation of what's happening up there, and it's not right. But there's a corrective action order. You know, there's part of the incentive was to DQ. Nothing is going to happen here until you put some teeth in your communication. HLH and we can still do that, and we can still help you all stay in this installed idle mode under district engineering service. It's not along here. What's in here and what Brian's going to present is more of, if it flips to, yeah, this is happening, then we got to attack it. Monitoring wells, engineering. That's monitoring wells where we stopped 5 years ago. Oh, we're right. If I get spun around the next one, nothing happened because nothing can happen until HLH and FR figure these out. But what I would say is that I agree. Stand back and let the dust settle. We were trying to be responsive to you and let's figure this out by April. That's not happening. But what's happening here is the Canyon is sidebarring, firelight, sidebar. We'll need to identify, okay, what's the next best for your study project for the fall. You know, we have to have one horse to continue running. So that's what will happen. I agree, it was parked Firelight Meadows, but what's next? What are we going to attack next that's going to do this?
One thing I'd add to that and talk about, we don't really have, sounds like we're not really at the table. I think you and I sat through 3 days of trial, hearing and listening to and modeling. I mean, these models are amazing to look at that were generated with CAM, letter. Yeah. I mean, the presentations were exceptional and that's why we prevailed, but they were frightening on what impact eventually, not now, but eventually, that could have on our water source, our water supply, our meadow water supply. So I think if anything else, we should consider in the future engaging with DEQ to say, hey, you guys got to do something here. It's going on this amount of time. There is a threat here. We're trying to solve this issue, but you got to turn up the heat on these guys. I mean, we're going to at least consider that.
That's right. That's right. That's the camp I'm in. By us saying flat out, no, there's no relationship with this group.
Yeah.
That means there's only one other option. Either they fix it and fix their system, or Firelight buys it, which then allows us to have the conversation. But us moving forward with any work right now, would give them the perception that we're actually trying to solve for it. And I don't think we should do that.
We would validate them as an entity by being a partner with them. Right. They would say, see, we're a part of the water and sewer district. The other concern for this team is this: we're the most qualified to at least consult with the negotiation between HLH and Firelight. By far the most qualified. That's a volunteer board over there, and we know the mechanics of it. And we can't let them be out there negotiating because they're not the most qualified. Then number two, we can't have them go to BSRAD and say, hey, we're going to need $6 million to buy these guys out, and we're going to need another $6 million to go to the Big Sky Water and Sewer District. If I were a BSRAD board member, I'd say, well, what's the Water and Sewer District's position on this? I mean, what do they think it's worth? What are they going to do? So by default, we're at the table. we can't have them going to BSRAD, otherwise we'll have to oppose them at some level. And we can't have them going to a ballot initiative of any type with a $6 million evaluation on a liability potentially. Those are the concerns. So
Peter's question, DEQ is talking Firelight. So say it was February, March, we met with more of their discharge permitting folks. Of, hey, they have this existing permit, they've been in violation. Is there a way to leverage that or amend it? The general answer to that was no, it's a new permit, so you gotta do a new characterization. And one of the Chris Bowe, who's their kind of hydro geo guy, his explicit flag was if anything goes to the South Fork, it's a non-starter from a discharge permitting standpoint. I don't even know the rhyme or reason why that's problematic. I think the models that you all have or that were part of the lawsuit are probably stronger than anything Chris Bowe has, but that was their stance from a discharge permitting. And then from an enforcement action, we met with their enforcement action gal and Chris Bowe again last week. It's basically the consent order spells out it's connect to Big Sky Water and Sewer District or nothing. There's not a rehab their treatment, rehab their disposal. It is a commitment to connect. So that is the only current option for either HLH to move forward or Firelight to move forward. So that's the current state from a DEQ perspective. They want this solved sooner than later. But yeah, it's really a connector type of from there.
If they want to solve it, they should send them a fine for $250,000 and say, figure it out.
Yeah, what's the current status of the fine for enforcement action?
My understanding is there's for sure this $60,000 scale.
Yeah.
I think there is another scale, but they didn't lead into, we could pull three. They didn't throw a big number up that they would, hold that against them to really put the pressure on. But yeah, I don't know that answer, I guess.
Should probably talk to DGS and Susan and say, what can we do?
Yeah.
Because the fine should be ongoing, because the pollution is ongoing in the aquifer. And send notice that, look, we're not okay with this.
Yeah.
I think the letter does that. It states our position, and if if that's their ultimate goal, probably ours too. But it ain't happening, so these steps actually take place. So I think
maybe copy DEQ and the letter back to them saying we are absolutely not in. And to that point, at some point, you have to say your valuation's unreasonable.
Yeah,
and
right.
we just can't get. I'm concerned with Firelight. They have all the right intentions. But if they're thinking that they're going to go to BSRAD and get this number, we got to cut that off at the pass.
And we're not advising them to go to BSRAD with they need to have a $6 million check to HLH, then we're going to cut a $4 million check to Big Sky Water Sewer District. We're advising them that you've got 200 some users that need to be able to afford a bill, and it's not $10 million that you can afford. It's my over-under is this $4 million scale. The water and sewer district they can figure out how to bridge. So
see, this risk for us, and it's not a criticism, but we've talked about, I'll call it disposal, reuse, whatever you want, but a ratio, and we talked about it up in Hella, it's somewhere between 20 and 80 million. That's a hell of a range. So if we're in between 20 and 80 million, and we have to go down that path before we can get confirmation what it is, we may decide to do that as a board, but that's a heck of a risk that we're taking, and there needs to be a value or a discount for that risk. There has to be, or we're not doing a job for our ratepayers. So we have two things. We can't dilute our credibility with BSRAD by even being a part of any application that would support that type of evaluation. And then number two, we need to turn up the heat on DEQ. And I agree, Mike, get that letter out, copy it to the right source. And the question for this board is, do we want to engage in turning up the heat with DEQ on HLE? That's probably the question.
I'd be in favor.
Yes.
So somebody needs.
Yeah, I mean, we have to
Turn up the heat.
We have to protect our resources.
Well, and that's Susan, who basically the response needs to be firm. And it needs to be timely right now. I just keep getting back to this ballot initiative. And I could see us all of a sudden falling by the wayside because we can't get the proper leverage with this negotiation. Yeah. So
If there were fines being levied 10 years ago, this thing would be solved and done.
I mean, their first consent was 2016.
Yeah.
2018 is when they did turn up the heat, but then they never did anything.
In many states, they were paying fines. But I don't know why. That's
Okay. All that before you can even present it.
Yeah.
It's like saying, what am I gonna have for dinner if we're in a lifeboat on this thing, but what the heck?
No, that was all a great conversation. And it's
Given all that. They would skip to these main planning, they just know that this is cooked. I mean, it's pretty well cooked.
Yeah.
For when they.
We've had our portion. You know what that is, we're just waiting for the other stuff. I'm happy to write this letter. I've been just patiently sitting on the sidelines because I'm in agreement. It's like, no, it's all or nothing. We take it over. Not going.
But we need to act on something. I mean, we need to basically, we need to engage on our position and make it clear. And then again, we're back to Monday saying this to BSRAD. Again, this is a response to BSRAD. So
Yeah, and we talked to all of these three. One party is Joel, the other two parties, I don't know when that was, November, and said, look, you need to go hire your own engineers, you need your own assessment about firelight. Did and got the GM and HLH agreed and got Derek. And where you're at, and at some point, I don't know if it's in this letter or not, but we should express our opinion of what we think the system's worth, but we have to recognize that Mesa's working for Firelight, and you may have a different, they may have a different opinion, but at least we've stated where we see it. It won't be based on mission of pipe or whatever data you all end up. It'll be based on this liability serving them for the next 50 years.
you hit risk. And when you said that, I mean, I was like, you're the kidding, Scott. How could this be 20 to 80? But by the way, their disposal is gonna be about 20. So we might break even on taking all this on, but there's some benefits with the threat, ratepayers, everything else that goes with it. But if we come out with zero, then we better start looking at other options for disposal, because that's all. So it's a good topic. Next up, you tell me where you want to go with this, and I appreciate all the time that was put into it. I did for some reason I thought you might have been in a little tighter communication with, as a Firelight rep, with HLH, whereas you were 100% on our side of the playing field.
Definitely Firelight, I'm completely tuned in, I just haven't had that.
But nothing, engagement with them.
I haven't either. Like I said, that came from Max.
Well, let's prioritize this. The response needs to be timely. And that's it.
Well, we can move on to the reuse management plan.
Yep.
We're all good here. As Scott said, this is a pretty short scope. The previous reuse management plan was developed in 2024. That was before the plan was finalized. It's before we started getting really good data. This scope essentially is just going chapter by chapter and updating it for the current state, 2026 update. That's going to include, most of these bullets here. The big improvements to the plan that we are anticipating are kind of a cost analysis of the entire reuse system. So looking both at the current state of the system, putting in cost to that, operation maintenance, 20-year life cycle costs, that kind of things, cost of pumping, we've discussed that a lot. That'll be incorporated into this. And then ideally, we will have some sort of Excel model, financial model to show you your reuse system on a dollars and gallons basis. The other big update would be finalize the salinity memo. Salinity, what was it?
Salinity
reduction memo. I reviewed that a couple weeks ago. It's pretty much there. Just needs a couple little tune-ups here and there before we feel comfortable putting it into the report as an appendix or handing it to you to give out to the public for your review.
And then the final major update would be, this wouldn't necessarily go in the report, but it'd be a part of the report and a part of your whole reuse system as a whole, is just your A1 base designation. That would be assisting Clark in all the needs for that. A couple deviation requests with DEQ would probably be within that scope, communications, that kind of stuff. So that's the general basis of this. See here, proposed deliverables, reuse management plan. We're on version 5 now, 2026 update.
Just
And
real quick, Brian.
Yeah.
The reason we didn't move forward in 2024 with that product to DEQ and public was lawsuits. So now it's 2 years later, got some updates based on plant performance, based on facility production plan. Will have us start, finish it. Is to get to submittal, so this becomes your new regulatory document.
So, that middle part there, that's that capital cost or the reuse kind of capital cost. I want to have a cost analysis that I talked about. And then finally at the bottom there, kind of develop a good reuse place of use map. Identify every place we're using reuse, where we're using it, how much we're using, and have a single source of truth on what we can show to people, where you can, pull up if you need a refresher kind of stuff.
So that would also run into changing our rates for reuse, because we've been updated that rate in a long time. And so,
Yeah, when they actually do call it RIC, so reuse investment charge rates, tiered rates for that permits. So we can issue permits for irrigation, because we've had quite a few requests, which I denied at this point in time until this plan is approved by DEQ. So then we can actually start building our reuse infrastructure.
we need that data in order to come up with those numbers.
Should be noted too that back in 2024 that this document is intended to be a living document, so about a 2-year update plan. So 2026 we're within the 2 years, and especially now with the plant being complete, producing exceptional data, it would be in our favor to do it now and show it to DEQ.
So back then, Mace, you had some great illustrations on options for reuse and pole 15 and underground and all kinds of things. The biggest issue back then that ties into what you're talking about, since we're talking about 2024, 2023, that actually went back 5 years ago, and it was really exciting for them. It was basically the par 5 right there at Two Moons, where you could do wetland and scrubbing and all kinds of terms for that. But you always said that the number one issue was the impairment. We're not a part of the impairment, of course, where the trigger for the impairment was firelight, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure that we see that daisy chain of tying all these together, that you had this option for underground disposal for winters, so that you didn't tie up a par 5 that would melt down sometime in July, but also that wetland scrubbing to help with the impairment, correct? All these.
Yeah.
So this was an option that was out there, but it was paralyzed again by the lawsuit, and it was paralyzed by the fact that you had firelight. Other ideas that we explored just on the side were the east open space right over here, the Trail coming in behind here. And that idea was a little different in the sense that you didn't have to worry about snowmaking over there because it's not a golf course. That would just be, it would be an addition to some of the irrigation that we did, what we call under the horse pasture cycle. But you had the idea of maybe going there, and everybody killed it, saying, for right now with the impairment, it's just not a top priority. As we talk about these options going forward, it's like in some ways we kind of contradict ourselves in the sense that we need more disposal, we need more, and then we say, oh, we're putting pause, which we should, on the purple pipe and reuse disposal, and we should engage in price structure and this and then. So it's kind of like we're saying we need more, but we're basically imposing costs to get more. The biggest question is what other options can we get a restart on moving forward with those other options that were out there? Those are really impressive presentations you gave back then.
So the options would lead us into the reuse master plan. So we get all those options in and how we're going to start doing this. Talking to colleagues and people that have been a part of this program behind the scenes, and through an active sampling plan and the mitigation of this stuff, we have a really high chance, if we do it right, to remove that from impairment.
That's the key.
That is the key.
Then it opens up a whole different, and the other part of that is you were treating the firelight issues with that, I'm going to say hole 15 option. We'll call it the 2 moon option because that's we have a flume dead ending. So by moving forward with that, now that we don't have the lawsuit, you might open up a door to A, treat firelight independently, B, get the impairment lifted, which they dovetail, and then C, look at winter.
So my goal would be to get this plan approved, and then the next one would be working into the reuse master plan, getting all those options down. What does that look like? Start putting that puzzle together. Again, working with DEQ because there's certain sampling and where we would need to sample to show our effects on cleaning everything up to be able to ultimately that front impairment on the stream.
What you need to solve impairment to get those options. Then most importantly, if we're going to do a plant expansion, call it a 2A or phase 2A, you're going to have disposal options to support those additional rate there. So, that makes sense with what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's a great conversation because 5.1 there, with this new designation, we have the ability to start looking and expanding the horizon for reuse.
But it all starts with impairment, lifting that impairment of your options.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Sorry, I lied to both you guys. Yeah, this is going to be a 10 o'clock meeting.
How about more snowmaking?
We got spoiled there, an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting, and I scheduled something for 11, so I'm good.
Well, hey, we don't have any voting issues, right?
No.
Okay. And we're wrapping up. So,
and yeah, these are drafts. Read them, digest them.
Yeah.
Please reach out with any comments, questions.
Thanks for your patience, especially on all the time you put in on the Flatiron. So,
Timeline on the reuse is for you guys to get going pretty soon here. It's on 120 days.
Yeah, I mean, I get this signed today and get going on it tomorrow. Like we're ready to go. It's ready to go. Start looking. Yeah. And that's about our estimated time frame, 120 days for the completion of the report, and then getting in front of DEQ. That timeline, I couldn't tell you with DEQs.
They are. We do ask them for a meeting to talk about compliance points for Class A-1. What we're doing there is ideally move the TN5 for nitrogen downstream to these pump stations, produce more efficient and YC1, so that Clark have a bad day at the plant. Way Class A-1 is written, you can't have this. He takes a bad minute and he gets 6. Plant lost notification. It's violating Class A-1. DEQ recognizes that that's not right. That's not the spirit of the reg. So what we want to do is see if they'll give us compliance for T and downstream of the reservoir, because that wipes out bad days. Which is 60 days worth, 90 days worth. But maintain compliance at the plant for turbidity and coliform, E. coli. Because once you put it out in the environment, the ducks get in there, yeast, whatever. That water quality does go down. So we'll see if they'll work with us on that.
So what's the kind of order of operations? You guys had put together the reuse plan and then come to us, we approve that, and then you go to DEQ.
Yes,
with
and
that.
your legal counsel has advised that they should review.
Sure. Yeah.
So the next step would be, once the report's done, legal, make sure that's all copacetic, approval, then we go to DEQ.
Got it. And then on that snowmaking question, where does that kind of fall in the?
I would put that into the master plan I mean, it's, you list out all the tools and then, you know, what we can do. Because snowmaking is kind of out of our wheelhouse, we have to rely on
Right.
our partners to do.
And a lot of money.
Yeah, and a lot of money.
But I mean, we've just got this, you know, whatever it's called now, the task force thing coming up next month. So, you know, any updates that we can have or.
Oh, they're chomping at the bit to
Yeah.
get this report. They want that.
Yep.
But again, it all ties into what we would be selling and talking about the water balance and stuff too. So,
Right.
You know, I just would, I gotta get this through. There's so much going on in here for public outreach and education and all that stuff. But without this supporting document, the launch that, that's what we're waiting on.
Sure.
Snowmaking has the conservation groups, or most of the conservation groups. And even if it's just 1 million gallons.
Yeah.
We just need a little something right now to bump that horizon line out to say, yes, we can continue connection.
One of the things that's gaining traction is the wildland fire suppression. I need to respect that to the fire department alone. Because the green belt, or what I had presented or brought up, that the same nozzles that are used to make snow can be used to also do that. So it's not, we have to go out and change equipment and do all that stuff. So there's just there's a lot there, and that would fall into the master plan. Because I am a big proponent of the green, you know, and I know Kristen is, you know, really excited about some stuff. Mason and I are talking about stuff. So it's really starting to develop and build all that. And that's what that's why I came in with the 10-year, $50 million project. And Mike said, well, you actually got $120 million CIP. But again, this is the starting. So we got to get the designation, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, the management plan would just like lay the foundation, provide a high level of like, hey, snowmaking is acceptable. Then the CIP, the UCIP would be the K. How do we implement it? Where do we implement it?
Gotcha. Do you guys need approval on this, or that's just you just signed it?
We can't approve it.
Well, I mean, not the plan, the expenditure.
I mean, we don't have enough board members to approve anything.
Yeah.
I'll have this tax order on the document.
Okay. So basically, that 120 days will kick off next month.
Yeah, probably. Data sign, we get going on it.
I'm going to ask an unpopular question, but do we address in our reuse plan what happens when and if something fails? What do we do? What's our backup plan?
I haven't seen it in the
No,
report.
we have not, and we've all talked about it, but we haven't put it in print. And that was one reason why we have this first piece, is assessing the value. Let's just take the example of the 7-mile pipeline that's now over 20 years old. If that fails, that is 70% of your reuse gone. Yeah. And I think it's the right thing to do, to say, and what we've talked about is theory. We look at probably a bunch of granular activated carbon pressure vessels and put them on the berm over here and pump out these reservoirs through it to before the Westport. And it's not permitted, but be the disaster scenario that's the least impactful.
We can add that to the scope of contingency plan of some sort, at least a high level view.
In my opinion, I think we should. I'm just one board member speaking, but it seems to be a topic we don't like to talk about.
I'm in agreement. Yeah. Actually, need to.
And I hope it never happens.
Super obvious question.
Yeah, no, I can look into it and put together something and see how much, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Together, I believe that is also.
We're going different perspectives. Forecast. Basically, at that point, the EQCs that it's not permitted.
But that's the issue with emergency plans, right? It's an emergency, it wasn't necessarily permitted, but minimize the impact on the environment, needs to minimize any repercussions that you would punch. You are putting it on record at that point.
Well, we all know it. Like I said, we just don't want to talk about it, but you know, it could happen. And that's kind of all of our job too, is to think about the things that could happen and what do we do then, not wait till it happens and then get in the room and say, what do we do now? And so, you know, personally, I think we should have be addressing it in some way.
That'll take me 2 hours of time to write that up. And talking to you, but is there a better time? That's something that Ron and I used to go on. The other piece of that though is having a value of what that pipeline would cost to place or whatever. So that you can start stocking on the money that goes into your charge to actually replace that pipeline for very well.
Yeah.
Appreciation. Yeah, okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mace, you're back up with Canyon.
Yeah.
See if we can hit noon on this meeting. Get some sandwiches in. I know this will be old school. I had 3 board members say I gotta be out by 10 today. I feel badly now.
That's a big committee. It's almost a reminder after listening to all this, the hidden value of the co-solution. Someone almost sell the co-solution again. Meanwhile, I'm gonna remind you that go to loan solutions being kicked around, but always the win-win of the co-solution has been a relief valve for Big State Water and Sewer District, a downhill means of disposal, and a substantive relief valve. So that ties into what we just talked about. Related to the discussion of impairment, the West Fork is impaired. The Gallatin is not. Yes, there might be an algae impairment 1 to 5 years from now, but that's not a nutrient impairment. That's not a number that creates a barrier for DEQ to say yes to a discharge permit. So that's really why we landed on the co-solution 5 years ago, was that win-win. Centralized treatment, another disposal relief valve, the Gallatin more resilient than the West Fork. By having the West Fork impaired, it's a 10 to 20 CFS stream hanging at 0.3 milligrams per liter at times of the year. And that's why DEQ deemed it impaired. So that it's sitting at that threshold. It has very little dilution capacity. Meanwhile, the Gallatin's a 1,000 to 10,000 flow rate, pile of dilution potential.
400 to 10,000.
Yeah, and it aims at like 0.1, so 3x lower. So
Aren't they working on TMDL on a gallon right now?
This is where I honestly don't get it lost in the weeds. They're trying to get it deemed impaired for algae. They know that it doesn't go to 0.3 milligrams per liter ever. So it's that number that always triggers the TMDL logic.
Right.
But it might be back calculating to an algae driver.
Already, not most of your impairments are impaired for that. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then they give you some math on where the says what they're getting on the Gallatin is that math, nitrogen and phosphorus is not there to support an algal, but yet they got one that keeps showing up, and why? And so then they're studying that and going to come out with even on the Smith River of why that's happening, whether or not it changes people's potential future permits remains to be seen. What they said on Smith is basically it's temperature. It's the temperature that enables an algal bloom at concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus that we used to think were too low. That's probably what they're going to say here, but I don't know what it's for permits.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
those number, we never had a housing program. Right, and Mace. South Fork, North Fork, or West Fork, but those are math and EQ. I don't know if you follow this, but it's a narrative. Now, there is no merits. They're saying they're going to go redo everyone's TMDLs. How do they do the TMDL without math? Like, you're going to say it's impaired, we're going to TMDL, we're going to divide up allocations, waste load allocations on that street. But you know, we don't have a permitting apparatus to say bring on there, nitrogen, divide, to can't do that. Legislature said none of that. It's narrative. So that's why we struggle with all of these different avenues, whether it's firelight, whether it's wetland discharging into the West Fork, West Fork, whether it's ribs down there. Like Ron used to say, you'll know what you can do when you have a piece of paper from DQ that says you can do this. It's planning.
Yeah, we don't know what we're designing to. So yeah, it's challenging.
Right. So is it an actual TMDL study that they're doing on the gallon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they will end up back calculating some form of load if that triggers an algae bloom in a certain seasonal setting, and they're going to build some sort of risk factor. I don't expect
flows, temperature.
I was just going to say temperature is such a key component to this. It's hard.
And flow.
They might find that nature, the load coming from Taylor Fork, Yellowstone Park, dominates anything worse than I don't even know, but it.
We'd be knocking on our door asking us to put water in there.
I mean, the algal blooms are upstream.
I know. Yeah. Please get one.
So my pitch
we have to discharge between July and all.
Yeah. But my pitch for why the co-solution has always made sense is it's fundamentally different game down there than it is up here. Where that game is landing right now, I think is a gray area for both settings. And that try to track those hidden values that are built into spending $20 million on a corridor. I don't know how to quantify how that benefits you guys on your 20-year outlook, but that's what keeps the co-solution alive. Downhill relief valve, disposal, and a 3 to 5 years of legwork on the discharge permit. You guys be starting fresh to some degree. Yeah, factor that in. And then ultimately, as a status update, it's the co-solution is where we've stayed on the tracks since 2024. We stopped even talking about the do it alone. The smallest co-solution project is about $50 million. That corridor is 20-ish, probably might even go higher. Purchasing treatment from Big Sky Water and Sewer District is $5-ish million early. That probably climbs to 10 million as growth happens in the canyon. So that's a $25+ million number that I can't scale down for the canyons. Meanwhile, the canyon, if it did go it alone, it can scale treatment, it can scale disposal, and I can figure out a sub $30 million project in my head. We haven't ran the numbers of what a new treatment plant would actually cost. We've got really, I'll call it 50% type design numbers. And we have numbers from projects we've seen built. But that's the definition that I think the Canyon District's going to be asking from myself or A2S or somebody going forward. But the point being is I can't scale down a $50 million project to figure out this financial feasibility, where I can figure out how to scale down a go it alone project to be 30 million. That becomes a financial game that $1 million, $2 million, $3 million grants and private funding can lift. Where on the $50 million project, it's a BSRAD needs to carry a big lift plus 10 million. And so that's where I started to be like, how do I get to an actionable project in 2027? And the go it alone can be scaled smaller than the co-solution.
Just don't forget the O&M,
Yeah,
those biosolids and everything else that's going with this.
and those are the wins of the co-solution: central treatment, single O&M, disposal win-wins. They're still the win-wins of the co-solution, I believe. But I can't figure out a $50 million solution right now.
Are you all still actively pursuing it?
Yeah, everything's into DEQ. We have a complete application. We paid the money. That was official in March once BSRAD gave them additional operations budget. So that's in DEQ court. They're reviewing completeness. Then I think we'll be meeting with them in May to say, okay, we actually presented probably 3x that they normally get in their applications. So we want to walk through it. Here's what we have. That's the basis for a really strong environmental assessment that's going to be attached to that permit writing. I am planning on putting another scope in front of the Canyon District Board of, here's what I heard from the environmental entities. And so I want to strengthen what is in our current documentation to address what I heard from those environmental entities. And that's fundamentally, what does the load do from the drain field to the river? Right now, our analysis doesn't do a real detailed fate transport. And so I'm ready to do that and actually have it about half done. And that's going to be that last true environmental assessment component.
What flow did you apply for?
There's 200,000 gallons per day is in our package. Where I'd have to pull up our full package that I think we had 200,000 of groundwater discharge, and then we had land application, and I can't remember if the groundwater discharge plus the land application land ended up at 200,000 gallons per day. The groundwater plus land application took us to 300, but I'll say it's in this 200 to 300,000 gallon per day range.
And what's the king?
100,000 is kind of the ASAP. We'd expect that to show up to your plant in the first 5 years. What they need is 200,000 is when growth would approximately double and they hit kind of this financial stability standpoint. We have an expansion plan of specifically we call it the Newberry drain field all the way down by the school. That single spot would add 100,000 gallons per day plus. But that we're not planning on needing that one until say 2010 if everything truly pushed 20 or 10 years. 10 years.
Is that Newberry and
It's in the package. Yeah. So we kept them all in the package. We have a parallel land application plan. The whole goal with the land application plan was if the permit got litigated, we could go land application in the bridge period of 100,000 gallons per day scale. So we're building a suite of disposal that reliably gets Big Sky Water and Sewer District this 100,000 gallon per day excess relief valve, and that when the canyon does grow, we can reliably maintain that 100,000 gallon per day relief valve. We go all to them. And I'll share those reports with all of you. It's just whether you want to. Maybe I can do a PowerPoint and make an executive summary, but it's all built in.
No, it's really helpful. I feel for you. You've had an obstacle every other month here. It's going to be hard. You know, you have the business profile, you have the environmental profile, you have these data. It's as if you get one every month. Just one quick question on all that. What about do you have a rough draft of what you'd be going to for a ballot initiative?
If it's the co-solution ballot initiative, all I'm saying is 20 million is what I sense has been BSRAD's appetite to navigate that corridor. Whether that $20 million is enough for you as a board to say, yep, we're partners on this project.
So you got the 20, what you're going to eat up in the 20, you've got 12 million, it's just sitting out there. So now you have 32 million to.
That 20 million is 8 on top of the 12.
I'm sorry, if I go to the ballot box, it's gonna say an additional 20 million, correct?
No,
Okay, what is that ballot initiative gonna say? What am I signing up for? Is a,
for a co-solution picture,
okay,
the original ballot initiative was $12 million
Got it.
for conveyance
Got it.
infrastructure. So it's an amendment that infrastructure that you all said yes to 5 years ago, our number for that is 20 million. And that's
so it's
the
only 8
floor.
million in addition?
Yeah, and
I feel better about this.
yeah, and that's where I think for you guys to comfortably get yes to, yep, we're ready for that
Got it.
infrastructure, we're ready to own that, and 20 million is enough for us to be good with owning that infrastructure. You still need to get to where, are you ready to build the phase 2A plant 5 years from now? And I'm guessing that layers on top of that 20 million.
Of course.
Another 20 million.
Is that enough?
You think it's 20 to do it?
I'm just throwing out numbers.
Higher than that. Push back. You're not far. It's super inefficient because we do.
I'm just trying to get an idea. I'm a voter. I'm walking in and I'm looking at this, or I'm BSRAD, who's gonna have to support this and get out and campaign like they're doing for wellness district and everything.
Yeah.
So now I hear that there's 8 million, basically, in addition to the 12 that's sitting on the sideline. And then we're coming in and saying we need, I'm gonna just say 25 million, that grows all the time. So now this 43 million, we gotta get BSRAD on board with. And then, of course, we have Firelight saying we're gonna need X.
But the cost of 2A is the 25. We're not necessarily saying these that's would need to pay for all of them.
No, we're just gonna figure out what we're going in. We need to make sure that we have fun.
You tee up. At that point, all you gotta do is put membranes in 2 boxes. For 2B and all of phase 2, and that's why phase 2A is so inefficient.
How do we do 2A? What do we need for cash to do 2A without putting it on the ratepayer? I guess that's the amount we'd ask for, correct?
The entire cost. I don't know. We've never really talked about that.
I mean,
we can't. It's probably a special meeting just to talk about this.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of what's on that ballot. What are we pursuing?
Plus 8. I mean, HDPE ductile iron pipe is at 15% right now because of what's happening. It's like this will not go well this year. Another 2022. If that doesn't settle down real quick.
Yeah, don't take my $20 million gospel. That was my read on BSRAD's appetite 1 year ago. It was like, from a BSRAD perspective, Mace, I don't know if we can afford to cover 20 million.
yeah, I think it's a whole nother conversation when you talk. What would we actually be asking? Because if they prepay for, let's say they prepay us, what was that, 5 million?
Yeah, $5 million scale of treatment.
5 million you don't need.
I'm just trying to get an idea when we go to Monday, since I don't see us all getting together on Monday, and we say to BSRAD, hey, it's been a good run over the last 4 or 5 months. Here's where we are. This is, because remember, the goal is a ballot initiative. State the goal has been ballot initiative. We got to start getting a rough idea about what we're going to ask these guys. And if we go into a Monday meeting and say, and someone asks it, I honestly have no idea what I would be going in as a voter for.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's the structure I've had in my mind as it might work for a big sky water and sewer district to say yes, and BSRAD to afford it is 20 million is the number where that's all a sunk cost very early, like in the next 2 years. So the BSRAD would have to say, how do we fund 20 million in this 0 to 3 year span? And then it's like your phase 2 plant probably doesn't need that 20 million until 2032 or something. You just need to know that you've got a partner in BSRAD. And so it's like 20 million, it's a $40 million commitment, but it's 20 million ASAP and it's 24 million at some date. And then it becomes Ken BSRAD.
Where does the Scott Altman come into it?
They're
early on.
There's 20, so there's a $50 million project.
God.
There's 25 million that's happening out of the private.
That's what I was looking for. I ran into him at the post office.
Yeah.
And it was a positive conversation. It's like, hey, we're ready. We're standing by. And
Yeah.
And I just was like blank stare. I'm like, okay.
That's the half, I wouldn't even say I have it under control down the canyon, I'm just not bringing it to you guys, that's not your problem. Highway 64 is where you come in.
Got it.
So there's 25-ish million that you guys get to just know that that's our future customer.
Yeah, don't look
That's
over
not your
here.
problem.
I got this one. You just stay
Yeah.
focused.
It's like departmental.
But it's important. So the biggest part for me is it's our issue when we get to a number that's so large that we can't get it passed on it.
Yep.
And who knows what other entities are going to be at the table next, for the ballot initiative. It might be not even a criticism, but you might have BSCO, you might have workforce housing, you might have 10 different things as there always tends to be a number of things. So what are we trying to get? That's all. It's great.
When it comes to the co-solution ballot initiative, 100% of the ask is tied to what gets you guys to say yes. Right now, the canyon's not trying to layer on to that ballot initiative. So,
Yeah.
So I think what you said, Scott, earlier, you're right. I think it's time for another meeting that's water and sewer district related on phase 2 and what that cost might be, how that gets paid for. So I don't think it's even fair to say, well, we'll just ask for tax for all of it.
Yeah.
Because I would anticipate part of doing this would be bringing in new customers that would contribute to that cost as well. But right now, we don't have much of an idea of what that might look like based on the SFBs that we need for Firelight, that we potentially need for the canyon that came on. This can kick us into 2B.
I don't know, I think once you all go build it in India, you would want to put it in escrow or something.
Absolutely.
And because the plant needs more food than shoulders.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. It's just that, but we also need to know when we hit 80%, here's how we're going to do that. Because otherwise we can't bring on new customers now. We can't bring on Firelight now.
Mace, what's this scenario where certainty that, we get the 20 million, we get the pipeline down there, that the rest of the project's gonna happen, get funded?
yeah. Higher than getting the 20 million for Highway 64. I feel like the developer motivation is there
Is there?
to carry this $10 million scale capital base. Like, we'll bring that money to the table, and the Canyon District will leverage that to get the Bucks T4. That's my optimism. Stoplight to Bucks T4. That's fairly economical. The new development demand is there. And our latest analyses are showing service area 4, which is the highway to the river. There's like 30 parcels. Like, that's meat bucket 1 for nutrient removal, and then meat bucket 2 is actually Bighorn Center, BSRAD, Congo. So north end and that pocket, which falls within our phase 1 project. So yeah, my optimism is the financial model works for that pocket. So if we figure out the financial model for Highway 64, we're good.
Yeah.
But
Ooh. Got a lot of balls in here.
I'm in the passenger seat for the next year. I got everything. No, just kidding. That's all right.
What else we have?
That's it.
That's it.
All right.
I was gonna ask Brian, we've got the reuse management plan. Had that presented, they could get to work on that. Is there a way that we could circulate an email or whatever, get that approved so we can get that rolling? I think fundamentally we're all.
It's just.
So
Sure.
you can just roll with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great.
I signed all the task force. You're aware of it, so.
Yep. No, I think we're all in support. I just want to make sure it didn't get delayed till next meeting. So.
No, we're gonna have a lot on the table. We just gotta get some of the stuff off. Like,
Well, for everything we take on, we gotta have new stuff.
you get a few of these off. Number 1 on my list, HLA. That hell, I mean, that one. Firelight scares me. That's all. It's a shame to be that far off on on an evaluation. We just thought it would be a little more realistic, that's all.
Are they just staking their claim to meet somewhere in the middle or?
Oh, there's nowhere in the middle on 6 million. I mean, again, what if it comes out that we can only accommodate what they use per year? That's a huge liability, a huge risk that affects, this is a business model. We can't be doing that.
So they were looking at it as a business model, money generating entity.
Exactly.
Public Works does not work like that.
No.
It's so far off that there'll be a second iteration of it, but I don't know if there'll be what we think it should be, which is 0 plus the value of reuse or something like that.
Yeah, I can tell you that WGN answers there's less than $2 million in assets there. Is how do you want to quantify the liabilities that drag down whether this? Yeah,
Well, those assets aren't new.
even zero. Is
They're not new. I mean, they've been in violation, but two, you're buying, they're pricing it as a brand new car that's got 300,000 miles. There's got to be deferred maintenance and things that are going to go along with this. Plus, we have no idea what we can get for capacity.
So the second layer of that is those $2 million assets aren't even assets to you all. I just have to look at it from an HLH and Firelight side, and a case could be made that some bit of that infrastructure might be worth something. But it's definitely not 6.75 or whatever that was, and there's just as much liability. And we'll see what this next iteration brings.
So there's another round to happen, you're saying?
So WGM is memorializing out of the collection network, the treatment's 0, like that's and that. So we'll have our number. It's probably be close to where 82S is landing, but 82S is looking at it from Big Sky Water Sewer District.
Yeah.
We're looking at it from a Firelight needs to get HLH out of the way. And it's going to be sub $2 million, I'm pretty confident. The water system, there is a potential asset there. I've got to wrap my head around how do we.
Would we ever separate the water system?
Yeah, that's how I presented it.
Yeah.
I would run the water system separate. It's not coming to us. The only thing I can do is supplementally hook up our system to back up that system. If that system.
Here we go, we're in this hybrid. I don't know.
The cleanest is to avoid it, just to straight in.
That's why
it's whether Firelight can afford.
But the water system would be set.
Got it.
Because it's only for Firelight.
But you're saying if we're gonna have a relationship, it's all or nothing.
Yeah,
No, you're saying separate the water system.
Yeah, I'm separate the water system.
So we would take over the sewer system and they would continue to operate the water system?
They can, or we could put it in the agreement that we do it. I mean, shit, we halfway do it now.
Is there 6.75 million include both?
I believe it is. I think it was the wholesale wastewater, water was out of HLH's own. But Firelight can't afford that 6.75. So where Johnny's head's at is how do we keep the connection fee down? If we isolate the wastewater, that's one connection fee, which you have water, there's gonna be a connection fee. So that's why we're taking it in a 2-step approach. In an ideal world, we wouldn't take it as a 2-step approach. We figure out how Firelight can afford both.
I look at it this way. Let's say Firelight owns the system and they say, we want you to operate it. You need an operator record because you start out with pulse samples, all that stuff. We already do the metering and all that. So it'd actually be easier for us to operate metering. Yeah.
Our meters are there, we give them the read numbers and they go off of them. They're tied into our system, yes.
Do they pay us to do that?
They do.
So what we would do is basically the money that's generated off the water side would go right back into the reserves to maintain that water system.
Potential decision point might be, would you waive the water fee? That's the only reason we broke it up is Firelight can't afford the buyout plus the sewer connection fee. So you might ponder whether there's a grace there.
Yeah, it'd be.
HLH is using a multiplier like when you buy a business or a cap. You're looking at it as a business, not a utility. And we need to look at it and say, is the water an asset or a liability based on their business model, whether it's a 6 multiplier or whatever cap rate they're looking at. They're going, hey, I like this. It's an annuity. I make money every year. We just have to balance it. In a perfect world, it would just fit our box of water and sewer. In a perfect world,
In my personal opinion, that's where they only have values in water. There is some value.
okay, it's good to know.
It's just a very unique situation with utility. Property owners, us. So that's why one reason why we're trying to keep conflicts of interest out of it. Look you work that out, take a look at it. But it's hard to do that when we're sitting here saying, wait, I heard what? No, we're not. There's no way we're gonna we, the district, are gonna pay that kind of money for this. Just so you know, that knows. Don't go make some crazy deal because that makes no sense for you. There's also like legal boundaries here.
Yeah. Well, BSRAD's not going to do anything about it. I think it's time that everyone turned up the heat because it is a problem. And I am surprised Cottonwood Law, after our trials, all that work. Well, I guess they don't have the money to go after. I wish Guy would go after them, and that'd be great. Someone go after them. Really attack something that is environmentally a threat instead of things that are part of the solution, like us. So
The last meeting I walked out of with the Firelight group was planning on there being essentially 2 to 4 agreements stacked up. There's like a Firelight HLH agreement that doesn't get signed unless there's an established Firelight Big Sky Water and Sewer District agreement. That doesn't get signed unless there's a BSRAD Firelight Big Sky Water and Sewer District agreement. That it all works together because they can't sign. Yeah, they need to know that.
Who's going to say to HLH from Firelight? Who's going to say to them, no, this is unacceptable to all parties. This isn't even close. Who's going to counter it saying, we believe it's worth X? That's it. Because we can't support this with BSRAD.
Yeah, no, and Firelight already shot that email.
Okay, so they've said we'll pay you X already.
No, that we're not paying
I'd be
any.
happy to help the district right now, talk to Susan about the city. Right.
Are we interfering?
Yeah.
But I also, yeah, I think the keywords are not so much, and I understand affordability is one issue, but also what's it worth? What's it actually worth? And I don't think anyone in this room thinks it's worth 6.7 million. So he's got to get to the point where you're being realistic.
Does anybody have a concern that, and we're partners with Firelight, we're not partners with HLA. Does anyone have a concern in that? All of a sudden, Firelight says, well, we'll offer you $3 million. We'll cut it in half, and they feel like they're getting this great deal. And then we're like, no, you can't. I mean, that's what I'm worried about, is somehow they settle in on a number that is unacceptable to the district. That's all.
Yeah, and then you got DEQ saying.
You gotta just be careful.
Does that really matter though, Brian? All those homeowners want to overpay for something.
They're gonna go to resort tax
They're gonna
and
go to
try to get it. That's gonna create funding for other things. That's how you're thinking about
I'm
this,
thinking
right?
it this way. There are, look, I said it
Firelight,
earlier.
very transparent with you. I don't think they're gonna sign anything until they
Yeah,
give a heads up.
We're partners with them. We want to coach them, and it's an unusual situation. We want to coach them and say, this is the maximum. That's my point, because we're all here as a team to say, guys, let's figure out what our maximum would be based on the current conditions before we get too far down the path. And then they can negotiate openly. If we say it's $1 million, they can negotiate towards $1 million. But if right now they don't know what we're thinking, maybe it's time for us to start really evaluating, especially since we have a meeting on Monday.
I think we'll have the information in hand on Monday to be able to help you define that maximum.
Great, great. More importantly, great for your client to say, I think this is your number you cannot exceed, otherwise you may get sideways with the district. That's all.
Or otherwise you're overpaying.
Yeah. We're not going to support it. All right.
To your point, Scott, about us, intervening or what, that's from a, kind of cost negotiation standpoint. But we should be intervening with DEQ and,
Well.
kind of protecting our,
It's not our, we don't own anything.
well, I mean, from our resource protection
Oh,
standpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think everybody should, yeah.
We're an adjacent property owner.
Yeah.
Hey, why are you not doing anything about this? You've known about it for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's our option for retired.
All right. Anything else? May, what, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, May 19th, meeting work for the three of us. Pretty soon we'll be on a one.
War of attrition.
Okay, exactly. Well, I guess people get spoiled by 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Let's do it, we elect.
Oh, hey, wait, tonight's Al's presentation. How many minutes do you have, Al? Oh, but shoot, Peter, you too. I just know that.
Combined, we have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
You get 1 minute each?
2 minutes.
No questions?
Good to get it long enough.
No
to say your
questions.
name.
Nothing. Yep.
Okay, don't forget. Meet the candidate, no questions asked. I'd like to ask you this, you don't. Would you like to know the name of my dog? Yes. All right, adjourn.
What's